Vengeance.
Gold! Buddy, welcome to another Vengeance God stream. My name is Mikey Fatum, also known as Ambassador Cal, also known as Vengeance God. I am excited to see you all today. And Fragrance has reminded me that I forgot to open up my notifications window, so let me do that right now. How is everybody doing today? How was everybody's weekend? I was in Las Vegas once again working with the Four Empires, which is a really fun little like LARP kind of deal. I have a couple of conventions around the country. So that was a lot of fun. But I was sad that I had to spend all day driving instead of streaming with y'all yesterday. So we are going to do some STO today. However, where was not everybody's country, but is mine at least, where Senator Cory Booker is currently in hour 20 of talking on the Senate floor. He is giving a speech to highlight the damage being done to our country by the current president and his billionaire puppet master, string holder, etc., etc. Anyway, I've been watching it all morning. It's really incredible, and yeah, Bozo administration. There you go. I think streaming for 2 hours without putting a highlight on that would be a mistake. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna play our usual STO stream. I'm going to be talking about STO if you want to, but we are also going to be watching the speech as it goes on. So let me bring that up. Turn the sound back on.
I just want to say that the answer to that question has to be.
So again, this is hour 20. One of the things you'll see. Okay, Katrina, I'll see you over on Twitch. One of the things you'll see, and let me bring it up on the vertical video too.
That I have not done before to try to help my neighbor in a time of moral crisis in our country.
One of the things
I may
that
be afraid, my voice may shake, but I'm going to speak up more.
You will see happen is that people are going to ask questions, which means they're going to take over the speak taking for a little bit to give him a second to breathe, because I can't honestly imagine talking for 20 straight hours. All right, let's get started.
And it was said to me by a colleague.
Oh yeah, what is the STO April Fool's Day joke today?
But joy will come. I'm going to turn to my left because I always say that she's a senator, but she's had one of the hardest jobs in all of America, which is to be the
Jesus, Altani, what was the rule change?
I met her and I realized she could probably do anything. I know about that. Yes.
Hey, Katrina. Hello.
Booker, so I always say
Thank you for reminding me.
And I'm wondering if you have something to ask me.
Will the senator yield for a question?
I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Well, Booker, we're a people of the book. People of the book.
Okay, I am trying to load up what the STO April Fool's joke is this year.
The books you believe in, what you read. We've heard everyone quote the Bible, philosophers, great thinkers and leaders, and you are one of them. And it has been my privilege to sit here next to you on this desk.
Did they finally do the helmet?
The best seat in the Senate.
Oh my God, they actually made a video of it too?
Yes.
My constituents.
Yes.
So I have your precious mother in our hands.
Who I
That's incredible.
suspect,
I'm so glad
like
someone
my
finally did
cousin,
that
my
helmet
brother
as the
in
April Fool's joke.
gallery that my mom's watching
Well,
from Las Vegas.
yes, and we appreciate what a good mother she was and how she raised you to be strong and to be smart and to be kind. And boy, oh boy, did she give you some danger. Booker, thank you for what you're doing. Thank
I'm
you.
going to try and talk
for
less
using
so that we
your
listen
voice
to this
stand
more,
up
but
against Trump's administration
if you have questions or
reckless
comments, I will still comment and
policies.
respond and stuff.
We have a lot to talk about here. So I'm going to bring it back to Nevada.
Yes.
Because we got a lot of families in my state, and just like you, those letters, they're overwhelming, and they bring me to tears. The stops in the grocery store, in the airport, and the
Got some kind of
shopping mall, and the
notification.
gas station, over and over again.
Oh, thank you very
People
much for
are
subscribing,
worried.
Katrina. I
People are
appreciate
worried,
it.
and they want us
That's
to help,
awesome.
and they're wondering about.
Senator,
Oops, thank you. Talk to me about how high costs of the
Oh, I'm
grocery
still
store
whooped in
are
this.
squeezing their budgets. They're concerned that President Trump declared tomorrow is Liberation Day.
I said it was very funny, Trexpert.
Liberation Day.
That's pretty much all I
This is when
said.
he plans to impose the latest round of across-the-board tariffs for goods in Nevada, in New Jersey. I see my esteemed colleague, Senator Duckworth, in Illinois, and every state in this nation. Tariffs that amount to a national sales tax. Now, Nevada's economy relies heavily on tourism. I don't have to tell anyone that. And these tariffs don't target tourism. Profound impact.
An evil idea being used for good. That's right. We built this as a cannon ship, I remember now.
Of the world. Because when prices go up across...
Oh my god. I can't believe I'm getting YouTube ads during this. I feel like you could just disable YouTube ads.
Table budgets, they are squeezed.
But
it means the number of visitors coming to Las Vegas, the visitors that fuel our economy, go down. It means the price that every single person, every single hotel, every single service we have goes up because of those tariffs. And so it's going to have a devastating impact on Nevada, on our local economy, on our small businesses.
This is
of businesses in Nevada are
this is the Associated Press feed.
Small
so
businesses.
I don't know if C-SPAN has a website
and the good-paying jobs it supports. So we see the impact. International.
Let's go to that so we don't get ads.
Visitor numbers. It hurts our economy in Nevada. Visitor numbers in Canada, they're already down by 70% compared to last year. Canada,
how's that looking
our
on?
great neighbor, partner, and ally to the north, down 70%. And the most troubling.
There we go. All right.
It's a recent report.
Nels, so people in chat could probably explain it quicker than I can, but basically, a Democratic senator named Cory Booker is doing a speech on the Senate floor right now to protest what the stupid administration in the charge of the U.S. is doing, and he's been going for almost 20 hours, so we are watching the speech in support of him. Right now, one of his colleagues is asking a question which isn't really a question. The questions are to give Cory a break.
To show that we are not without a say in this country. We are not without a say, and we cannot go quietly, ever, without that fight. So, Senator Booker, I want to ask you what you think these tariffs are going to do. Well, not just the place where your mom lives in Las Vegas, but where families live all across this country. And every price at the market, every price at the gas station.
Well, that's all done.
Wherever you go.
All right, let me switch my ship back.
Wherever you go, and where people depend, like my
yeah, Major Rev, and apparently I just learned from Trexpert the old record holder is a huge racist, so let's beat that.
Senator Blumenthal said, Senator Booker, what can we do? That's the question we're asked. What can we do?
I want to answer your question, but first I want to just say what you already know. You represent my mom. You represent one of her best friends, Lou. You represent my Aunt Shirley. You represent my Uncle Butch. You represent my Aunt Marilyn. You represent so much of my family. This is the place where my father died.
That's beautiful.
When Harry Reid came to his bedside when he was sick and I was still running for this office and showed me the extraordinary kindness of senators from Nevada. That tradition has continued. I'm so grateful for you. My family's grateful for you. I'm grateful that we were founders of the Black Jewish Caucus. And in fact, I keep this Juneteenth Seder.
When it comes to civil rights, that literally is a come to Jesus moment.
As I think about Edon Alexander and all those.
Trexpert pure spite and deals with Satan, most likely.
I'm just so grateful for our friendship and what we've done against anti-Semitism, what we've done for the Abraham Accords. You are somebody that you and I find a lot of ways to work with.
So did they actually put the helmet in the game, or did they just make a funny post about it?
Sitting in this row, me, you, Mark Kelly, and I always say that the best, often in the most difficult of circumstances, you see the best of people. And I don't know if you
hey, what the hell? Welcome.
Coming rushed in, and usually you have to have special identification. And then some of them
good, Jairus.
And they were crying, and they were upset, and they were frightened. And I just watched you go from senator to mother. And I watched you comforting people in their times of fear when they thought they were going to be killed, literally. And you were this voice of comfort, voice of calm. I saw you in one of our worst countries, worst crisis. I saw your light. I saw your love. I saw the Jewish mom. and I benefited from that. I just feel that Trump mocks us. What does his Liberation Day mean to the people that are shackled to debt? From medical debt, that are shackled with student debt, that can't afford the rising cost of groceries. What's his liberation mean?
Additional data is available.
To people who are chained by fear right now, waiting with bated breath to see if the Medicaid programs they rely on are going to be cut. What does his liberation mean? To people who are literally in jails right now because they were disappeared from our streets. What does his liberation mean to people who can't afford homes?
I hope you mean seat in
because
hell,
of his
Trexpert.
tariffs, who dreamed of a new car, but that's going to go up as well. I don't know what he means by liberation. I honestly don't. I wish he'd explain it to the American people. Who's liberated in this financial times? Who's liberated? I don't think the law firms feel liberated, that we're so threatened by you that they felt the only way they could get from under the threat of you is to come to you and beg them and offer them and say we'll do this and say we'll give you millions of dollars of pro bono worth. I don't think they feel liberated. What about the people that are banned from the press corps because
that's too bad.
Call it the Gulf of America?
There was a Republican in here earlier that just sitting and watching that Booker called out. It was pretty great.
Freedom of the press. Do they feel his liberty? What does his liberty mean? What does Donald Trump's Liberty Day tomorrow mean? In a nation where I read letter after letter of people that feel like their liberty is gone, that they're losing sleep at night worried about Social Security. What does liberty mean to the veteran that was laid off?
He's raising tariffs across the board, Karas, to countries like Canada, which is going to just make everything more expensive for people in the U.S. It doesn't do anything.
Fighting for our causes. What does his liberty mean to them? I don't understand Donald Trump. I really don't. There are going to be PhD students writing about him for generations. He'll love that in heaven. He'll look down and say, I'm so happy people are talking about me. But I will tell you this, I love great presidents. I love that Lincoln said, with malice towards none, with charity towards all. But I hear Donald Trump say, with malice...
Japan and South Korea have formed an alliance to figure out how they're going to handle it, which is not people you normally hear getting along.
I love FDR. You have nothing to fear but fear itself. But the letter after letter, the word fear, the word terror, I was reading from voices from my state and across the country.
Yeah, and those failed both times, Altani.
Donald Trump is saying, be afraid of me, the big man with the power. Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. There was another president that said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And yet Ukrainian Americans are watching their president go, not Mr. Gorbachev, tear down the wall. They're saying, hey, Mr. Putin, come in and take the Donbass. I'm going to start the negotiations, not with Putin, what he wants. Ukrainian sovereign land, and that's where we'll start the negotiation. And I love John F. Kennedy quoting a poet saying, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. What is Donald Trump? Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what can you do for Donald Trump? Because I will threaten you until you kowtow. I will threaten to run primaries against you.
Yeah, Evil Mark, 100%.
And vote for things you know are wrong. I will terrorize your law firm unless you come to me and kiss my ring. I will make political your applications for your merger. I will drop cases against you. I will pardon you if, as he said in a recent pardon, he was a pro-Trump guy. I don't understand this. I really don't. And I don't understand how he tries to divide Americans. I got on a plane once. I'm on a plane and I'm juggling to put my carry-on up, and I get lots of reactions with someone following me. And And so here I am putting up my overhead baggage, and I sit down next to two people, the presiding officer before this, my friend from Alabama, two Alabama. I see people paying attention to me. They said, "Who are you? Are you a professional athlete?" And as a middle-aged, overweight black guy, my ego wasn't insulted. I wanted to say, well, I could be, but I chose to serve the people. But no, I go, no, ma'am, I'm not. Well, who are you then? I go, well, I'm a senator. And we're so conditioned in America, if we meet a congressperson out and about, the first thing we want to know is, whose team are you on? My team or their team? Us versus them, horrible dynamic of tribalism in our country. And I took a deep breath. I looked at these two great American women, and I said, ma'am, I'm a Democrat. And the woman next to me looks at me suddenly sour, and she said, I should have brought my Trump hat, and she wheeled it away from me. And immediately I said, you know what? I'm not going to dance to this tune. I'm going to scratch this record. And I looked at her and I go, oh my gosh, Donald Trump signed two of the biggest bills I wrote in Congress into law. I said the First Step Act, which we passed in this body, 87 votes. We would have got 88 if one of my dear friends and colleagues was not off trying to do whatever in the world and he wasn't here to vote on it. And I talked about opportunity zones, working with Tim Scott to get billions of dollars invested into some of our country's poorest rural and urban areas. Now, they were confused.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, Drexpert. They don't really have a plan other than get money and break things.
By the end of that flight, I was talking to them like fellow Americans, and we found so many points of connection, so much common humanity, and so much common cause. These outrage machines, TV, and these devices, I want to say to America, their financial interest is to keep your eyes on the screen as much as possibly can. And you know what? Sells division, divide, moral indignation. I will tell you this. I have this great friend, part of the Bald Club, named Van Jones. He told me this story that he was on.
It's amazing that he still sounds as good as he does
and
after
Van
20
Jones,
freaking hours.
Got on with Newt Gingrich. Van Jones, a green activist, a guy I met in law school, extraordinary man, speaks like a poet to me, and he worked in the Obama White House, and then Newt Gingrich pulled him
Karas,
in.
yeah, I think that is
So
with the
they get
music
on
in the
this show
background.
called Crossfire, and they find out, with all the differences they have, they also have commonalities, things they agree on, and they actually kind of like each other. So they go to the producers and they say, hey, could you let us do the final segment called Ceasefire? Go ahead. And so they do this last segment talking about the areas they agree, but the producers run in after a few shows and stop them. Can't do it. Why? Ratings are going down.
Jesus.
There are a lot of legitimate differences in places I'm going to stand my ground and fight.
Nels Hope, there have been bits where people have come in and asked questions. I'm assuming that's to allow him to drink water, shove some food in his mouth, and probably occasionally run to the bathroom.
Put more indivisible into this one nation under God. That's the challenge.
The questions are more like short speeches. I think they have a time limit on how long the question can be.
Most Americans are for that. Oh, gosh. I've been waiting for you. For crying out loud. Why did you interrupt me earlier?
You were on a roll.
Oh,
you
come
were on a
on.
roll. And
Come on, Senator.
Well, you yield for a question.
I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
I don't know what kind of food you eat on that vegan diet of yours.
Yeah.
But I need to figure out more of that vegan diet. One place where we can and do care that unites us as a nation is the role of our nation's veterans.
Yeah, Nels, I hope he gets to sleep for a week.
For us. Although
I was on my feet talking for like, I don't know, 6 hours on Saturday and Sunday and almost died. I can't imagine doing this.
For this nation in the president's estimation. But I just wanted to start off by saying thank you again, Senator Booker, for all that you're doing as you hold the floor today, but also every other day, to underline the pain and damage Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing, not just to our country, but to middle-class Americans throughout our country. And tragically, that harm even extends to our nation's veterans, who have sacrificed so much to protect this country and keep Americans safe, who should be shielded from this needless chaos and uncertainty. Senator
Yeah, they said
Booker,
something
I
like
know you're
80,000
well aware that this
veterans are being
administration
let
is
go,
firing more
which is
veterans
wild.
than any other administration in modern history. It's been reported that this administration, in these first few months in office, has fired approximately 6,000. VA has resulted in operations for our veterans being canceled. We've seen reports of the Caregivers Hotline, a hotline that was set up to support the caregivers who provide medical caregiving.
Like,
To
I
their
don't
loved
believe
ones
in the
who served and
military in
sacrificed and are
general,
now disabled. There are
but if you're
delays
gonna
with the
have one,
hotline
you at least have to
being
take care of
answered
people who went and fought for you.
Donald Trump
That should be
fired all
basic.
of these veterans. There are people who support the crisis hotline were
Whoop.
also fired. I know this because some of them are my constituents and asked for help.
How long
I
until
have
the
one
U.S. fully
individual
collapses?
who served in the military for over
Decades
2
probably if
decades.
it continues like this, Tom
Did such a
McFarland. It's
good
too
job
big
on the
to
crisis
fully
hotline as
collapse,
a
but
frontline
hey,
person
Doc
answering
Nader.
the phone, trying to prevent their brothers and sisters from the idea of suicide. They did such a. We were able to
Jesus.
get some of these people their jobs back. Some of them are still out there without their jobs. This is what Donald Trump and Elon Musk has already done. This does not help our nation's veterans. This does not help our nation's heroes. If anything, it is a betrayal that
Is
this
that
president dodged 5 different times when he
it
had the
won't be
opportunity to serve. Now, men and
it
women
won't
in
be a
uniform came
collapse, it'll
home
be just
from serving.
pretty much the
Many
Empire
of
from
them
Star
chose to
Wars.
continue their service
The
to
country
as
continuing but being
veteran employees.
irrecognizable,
How
unrecognizable.
are Elon and Trump thanking these brave, selfless Americans? They're doing it by showing them the door and leaving them wondering how they'll be able to afford next week's groceries or next month's rent, forcing them to look for a new job.
I'm gonna take your advice,
The
Rachel.
senators
Since I'm
from New
tactical,
Jersey
I
and
will
are
upgrade all
both
the
working
satellites.
together to help our heroes get their jobs back, which is why I've introduced a Protect Veterans Jobs Act to reinstate all veterans who were wrongly fired from their federal job getting started. From everything that we've seen, they are planning on firing another
Alcoholic Fish Monster, I'm not sure I get that.
on a chopping block on top of the 6,000 who've already been fired. It is a complete
Those of you who are joining us late, Cory Booker,
Musk.
who's a senator in the
Firing
U.S.,
VA
is doing
employees
a
will even harm
speech
veterans
on the Senate floor
that
as
Trump
long as
is
he
not
can.
firing,
Basically, he said he's going to go until he
because it's
physically
going to force them
collapses
to wait longer to see
in
their healthcare
protest
providers.
of the current
It's gonna
U.S.
make them wait
administration and all
longer
the
to have their
god-awful,
disability
terrible
claims
things they're doing.
adjudicated. It is gonna
So
make them
we are
wait
watching that
longer
to
have
support him.
someone pick up their calls at the Veterans Crisis Line. It is going to make them wait even longer, and their loved ones wait even longer to have their burial and funeral expense reimbursements request processed, and so much more. All while the VA's backlog of unprocessed claims continues. Wondering if you could tell us if you have heard from your veterans who have been fired, if you have heard from your veterans who've seen their services delayed in New Jersey and around the country.
Yes, 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 yes. This is my veterans book. This is what I was reading from earlier, and everything you're saying is right, and it is such an insult. I read stories from our veterans. It's such an insult to the highest.
One thing
calling
that's
of our
been great
country
about the
to
speech, if
stand
you've been watching
and
it,
serve
is the
as you
Democrats
did.
have repeatedly said one of the reasons they're doing this is because they know they're not doing enough, and they've
As
heard
you
that
did.
from all of their constituents.
Injured veterans, disabled veterans. I read want to serve in humble jobs doing noble things. And how do we treat them?
Voible, I'm not sure about that either.
Off. A quarter of them are veterans from the VA itself, but this doesn't include veterans that do things for the parks.
That's
Service,
great,
our national
Trexpert.
parks.
It's good
Veterans
news.
that do things for us in the Defense Department. Veterans that do things for us across this country. I found in my state some of the greatest leaders I have met in my state are veterans who are still serving veterans. And then, the VA is cutting.
I think
not
that
just
this
veteran
one is
jobs, they're
handled,
cutting
and I should go
contracts
help the
with
others.
veteran-owned businesses. I don't understand how you can say out of one side of your mouth you honor and respect our veterans, which is not what our president's always said. Dear God, what he said about John McCain. I still remember John McCain is in a town hall with Barack Obama fighting
Yeah, let me know, Rachel.
to be the president of the United States, and somebody gets up and says that Barack Obama, as if it's an insult, it's not, is a Muslim or something, and he grabs the mic back and corrects her. One of his voters, he corrects her on national TV. This is wrong. He's a guy who loves his wife, Christian, loves his family. I mean, that is character and honor. Can you ever see that from our president now? And this is how wrong I was. And I want to admit, I've made mistakes. I've been wrong. I remember where I was when he said...
That would be great, Altani.
that
Musk
he's
literally
the
bought
hero.
votes
The
in
people
the
that
Wisconsin
captured
one.
are not heroes. I said to the people that were with me up, there goes his 15 minutes of fame. I thought that was the end of Trump. But somehow you can become president of the United States when you insult the veterans who serve. I want to read you, and I know you have another question, but can I read you? We've been read this when you were here.
That is also
Because
good
I
news,
read
Trexpert.
this-
Thank you for bringing the good news today.
It's let me all tell you, this is John McCain writing. Let me all tell you what I think about the Pledge of Allegiance, our flag, and our country. I want to tell you a story about when I was a prisoner of war. I spent 5 years in the Hanoi Hilton. In the early years of our imprisonment, the North Vietnamese kept us in solitary confinement, or 2 or 3 to a cell. In 1971, the North Vietnamese moved us from these conditions of isolation into large rooms with as many as 30, led by people like Nancel, was Mike Christian. Mike came from a small town near Selma, Alabama. He didn't wear a pair of shoes until he was 13 years old. At 17, flying officer, and was shot down and captured in 1967. Mike had a keen and deep appreciation for the opportunities this country and our military provide for people who want to work and want to succeed. The uniforms we wore in prison consisted of a blue short-sleeve shirt, trousers that looked like pajama trousers, and rubber sandals that were made out of automobile tires. I recommend them highly. My pair lasted my entire stay. As a part of the change in treatment, the Vietnamese allowed some prisoners to receive packages from home. And some of these packages were handkerchiefs, scarves, and other items of clothing. Mike got himself a piece of white cloth and a piece of red cloth and fashioned himself a bamboo needle. Over a period of a couple months, he sewed the American flag on the inside of his shirt. Every afternoon before we had a bowl of soup, we would hang Mike's shirt on the wall of our cell and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I know that saying the Pledge of Allegiance may not seem the most important and meaningful part of our day now, our day in the Senate, but I can assure you that for those men...
Oh, that would be
in
great,
that
Nels.
stark prison
Wouldn't that be
cell,
great?
it was indeed the most important and meaningful event of our day. One day, the Vietnamese searched our cell and discovered Mike's shirt with the flag sewn inside and removed it. That evening, they returned, opened the door of the cell, called for Mike Christian to come out, closed the door of the cell, and for the benefit of us all, beat Mike Christian.
Follow Alcoholic Fish Monster.
He was not in good shape.
Okay, let's just say no,
We tried to
but
comfort and take care of him as well as we could. The cell in which we lived had a concrete slab in the middle of which we slept, 4 naked light bulbs in each corner of the room. After things quieted down, I went to lie down and go to sleep. As I did, I happened to look into the corner of the room. Sitting there beneath that dim light
oh
bulb
Jesus, Altani.
with a piece of white cloth, a piece of red cloth, another shirt, and his bamboo needle was my friend, Mike Christian, sitting there with his eyes almost shut from his beating,
Jesus.
making another American flag. He was not making the flag because it made Mike Christian feel better. He was making that flag because he knew how important it was for us to be able. We must never forget those thousands of Americans who, with their courage, with their
Ultron,
sacrifice, with
today,
their
what's going on
lives,
today
made
is
those
deeply
words
important,
live
and I
on
feel
earth
like
for us. That is our
it
veteran.
would be silly to just
That is you.
stream today without
You, my friend.
making sure that I'm shining a spotlight on it.
And Trump is
So to
coming
a certain
after them.
extent, yes.
Those who are coming after them, they're firing
Because
them
everything
right
is
now.
political
And
right now.
Are we silent, America? Are we silent when the bravest amongst us, the most honorable amongst us, the most noble amongst us are losing their jobs? Did you speak up when they came for American veterans? when they fired them for no good reason, what did you do? What did you say? I say no. I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Thank you for what you've said. John McCain was a true hero. He said the same thing to me when I first met him. I do have a question for you, which will come later.
I don't know what
I would tell you
that's about,
the
Altrin.
story of how I met John McCain. I was recently wounded. Within weeks of being able to finally sit up for the first time, I was in physical therapy. And
Yeah, to a
Senator
certain
McCain
extent,
came to
Altani.
visit us. And the nurses and occupational
But I'm not
therapists
doing
and
this for
physical
view
therapists
counts.
came
I know I'm
running
only
in
going to get,
and said, Senator McCain,
you know,
this is
maybe at
Captain
most 60
Duckworth.
people today,
She
because
was-
it's an
she's a
STO
hero,
day.
just like you, and said to me, "You're a
But
hero like Senator McCain.
I could just crack jokes. I'm just
You
going
were
to,
both shot down."
whether you know or not, Cory Booker is on hour 20 of talking on the Senate floor in order to try and shine some light on and protest the terrible things that are happening in the United States, and that is more worth supporting. I actually have a feeling I'm going to lose some viewers over this, because I know there's some fairly conservative STO fans, but it's too important. I can't not do it. So I don't think calling it Lolitics is a good idea. I think that we everything in life that people are calling political these days is not political. Or it is political. I don't know. I don't know how to actually say it, but it's too important. It's too important to fight for our trans brothers and sisters. It's too important to fight. One group of fascist idiots have somehow gained all of the power in our country, and no one is trying to stop them. So yeah, I'm going to elevate anything that's trying to stop them.
Ask for someone to serve. When this country asks, who
Thank you,
among
Examir.
will leave your family, leave your friends, leave your neighbors?
Yeah, there's a bunch of old
and put
books
on her colors
that
and
are kind of
defend her?
interesting reading about
Not for your mom, not for your dad, not for your family members,
but
for
about
strangers who will never know your name,
about sabotage,
who will
like
never know
low-level
your
sabotage in a
sacrifice.
situation
Who
like
among you
this.
will do that?
Those might be good historical reading,
Thank God that from
you know,
Lexington
for
and
context
Concord,
and perspective.
from Iwo Jima, from Drang Valley, from Kandahar, from Fallujah.
Well, I hope you can hear some of this anyway, Rachel.
There were Americans who stood up and said, I will defend this great nation. I will wear her colors with pride. And all we have made.
That is 100% true,
Let them
Trexpert,
have the
or
benefits
Theron,
they earned.
sorry.
And yet Donald Trump and Elon Musk are cutting those benefits. The biggest predictor.
Yeah, those are good reading for actual historical context,
Is not post-traumatic stress disorder. It is not a health
Dexter.
condition. The biggest predictor of veterans' homelessness is lack of employment, not having a job. That
Just fired
begins the
8,000
spiral
of them.
downwards for veterans that ends up with them becoming homeless. And I will tell everyone in these that he or she defended to sleep that night. We are all dishonored. The VA has done tremendous work to fight veterans' homelessness, and that has been a bipartisan effort. And these cuts that are costing veterans their jobs are going to start some of those veterans, unfortunately, on that path to homelessness. These cuts are going to mean those veterans' homelessness programs that will prevent our veterans from becoming unhoused, those programs will not be able to take care of all the veterans of the demand. I'm already seeing it. I spent this past weekend in Missouri at the Cochrane VA Medical Center hearing about
Yeah, thought
the
crime is a good
challenges
start,
they're
Dexter.
facing. They need to expand. They don't need to shrink.
Yeah.
They just need another 25,000
God, what a
veterans.
thing
We
they
need
need to edit out of that
to
episode,
expand
Theron.
their services. And yet Elon Musk
Or edit in a
Donald
reaction
Trump
shot from everyone else going,
is
why did he say
cutting
Elon Musk? What the
veterans'
fuck?
jobs, veterans' benefits, because according to them, veterans aren't heroes. We are suckers and losers. Well, I beg to differ. I am sure that my colleague from New Jersey knows that firing 80,000 employees from the Department of Veterans Affairs wouldn't just cause longer delays for veterans, it will doom our VA's ability to process claims, that the influx of claims under the PACT Act, a law that is helping ensure veterans who were exposed to toxins while serving can get the care that they have earned, with more than 1 million claims already approved in a short time since it's become law. I can't think of a single good reason to hurt so many veterans. And I'll just ask the senator from New Jersey, can you think of any reasons?
I'm very moved by your comments. I want to say,
Rachel, I don't know if you're on the Discord. We already had the 2 games win that are going to be our future games. That is No Man's Sky and City of
they
Heroes.
should all get our honor and respect. Senator Blumenthal served, and he has a son, Navy SEAL. We should have a reverence for those people.
It's a good
because
idea,
lot of
Disco.
them didn't make it back. A lot of people didn't make it back, and a lot of people who came home.
Evening, Jeb. We are watching Cory Booker's speech on the Senate floor while playing some STO.
We should all be ashamed of veterans that are committing suicide. We should all be ashamed of veteran homelessness. We have the capacity. We are a great enough nation to help them.
You just choose not to.
The ones that didn't come back, they watch over us. They look down upon this nation. I want to read you one more thing, because I was raised by parents who could not think they could. They really worried raising me in an affluent town in a beautiful home that I would not.
Maybe. I'm not sure I'm going to play Detroit Become Human, Rachel. There's a lot of controversy around the developers of that game and how they treat their workers.
My dad would say things to me like, "Boy, don't sit at this table and not realize that you drink deeply from wells of freedom and liberty that you did not dig. You eat from banquet tables of blessings prepared for you by your ancestors. You must metabolize those blessings, not so that you can pay your ancestors back, but that you can pay it forward."
Yeah, hell yeah.
When I got degrees from Stanford, Oxford, and Yale, said, "Boy, you got more degrees in the month of July, but you ain't hot." Tammy.
Oh, God.
I'm here because of people that died for this country, that stormed beaches in Normandy in this country. They were at Iwo Jima for this country. They liberated Nazi concentration camps.
I would say that's probably not a corporate government then, Altani.
In Thailand, fields full of
Nice,
American
Jeb.
soldiers who never made it home. And so let me read this, and I'm going to compose myself, because you got me all emotional, Tammy. I thought you were my friend. This is a poem written by Billy Rose. You know it probably. It's called "The Unknown Soldier."
Yeah, that would make sense,
And just
Evil
listen
Mark.
to the words and let them echo, and see if we are living up to them. If our president lives up to them, the most powerful person in the world, or the richest man in the world.
I know, Altani, I was making a joke. Because if they have empathy, it doesn't sound like a corporation.
And the flowers there are splendid, with the tears from a mother's eyes. I
Oof.
stood there not long ago with roses for the brave, and I suddenly heard the voice speak out of the grave. "I am the unknown soldier," the spirit voice began, "and I think I have the right to
Exactly,
ask some
Theron.
questions man to man. Are my buddies taken care of? Was their victory so sweet? Is that big reward you offered selling pencils on the street?
Ooh.
Did they really win the freedom they battled to achieve? Do you still respect that croix de guerre above that empty sleeve? Does a gold star in the window now mean anything at all? I wonder how my old girl feels when she hears the bugle call. And that baby who sang, 'Hello, Central, give me no man's land.' Can they replace her daddy with a military band? I wonder if the profiteers have satisfied their greed. I wonder if a soldier's mother ever is in need. I wonder if the kings who planned it all are really satisfied. They played their game of checkers, and 11 million died. I am the unknown
Cool,
soldier.
Rachel.
And maybe... Thank you, Senator. every time I see you, I have such reverence and gratitude that I get to serve alongside of you. I didn't serve in the military alongside of you like those courageous soldiers, like those people who carry you at risk to themselves, people who saved your life, people that helped you in rehab,
This will not cripple the Iconians.
the people that empowered you to get back on your feet and run for one of the highest offices. Exactly. And my dad, who's in heaven with a lot of the other good folks from American history, I don't know what he'd think of his son, but I know he'd be proud of you.
Oof.
All right. Let's talk about the economy. Christopher Coons.
Will the senator yield for a question?
I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Is the senator familiar with Rory Badger of Delaware? Is the senator familiar with my guest to the speech to a joint session of Congress delivered by President Trump just a few weeks ago?
So every time I answer the question, we have to go through the same thing. I am slightly familiar, yes, because we talked about it, but I would be really happy if you asked me another question and filled in some gaps.
If I might,
I am 7 of 9.
I simply want to ask my colleague.
Then I yield for a question. If you want to ask me a question, I yield for a question while retaining the floor with the recognition that I have to do it because I'm standing between two Delawareans and I'm a little nervous. Jersey never wants to be between two Delawareans.
Return for reassimilation. You must upload a virus to the disconnected Borg ships before
To my colleague and friend from the great state of New Jersey, I simply am asking the question, are you familiar with a Marine from Seaford, Delaware? His name is Rory Badger. He is not a man of politics. He is not a partisan. And he only came to my attention when he called my office for assistance. Rory Badger volunteered to serve our nation, was deployed to Afghanistan, and is a decorated combat veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Working through the impact of his service, he's returned to the United States and was engaged by Fish and Wildlife in Delaware and doing great work to promote conservation. With a young wife and a young son, Marine Badger reached for what was his dream job, to work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Conservation Service. All Rory wanted to do, he conveyed to me in a letter and then in person when he came to visit here. All he wanted to do was to help farmers on the Delmarva Peninsula conserve their land, create wildlife habitat, protect the environment, and be in places both documented in long discussion and debate in the last hour. He is one of thousands of veterans who woke to receive
In this TFO sheep?
just an unwarranted termination email that said it was for a cause without citing any cause, and that threw him into the chaos and hurt of having been summarily fired by the American government. He's ultimately been rehired, thankfully, but that period of chaos and of loss made him question our nation and its commitment to our veterans. I will share with my colleague, had the opportunity to visit with our friend Senator McCain to the prison where he was imprisoned for 5.5 years, tortured repeatedly, and lived through the experiences you've just shared of fellow veterans risking their lives to do the most simple thing that we take for granted at the beginning of every day here, to pledge allegiance to our flag. I had a chance on visiting the Hanoi Hilton with our friend and former colleague, Senator McCain, to ask him a simple question, which was at the end of his describing the period when friends were beaten horribly, when some were killed, and when his Vietnamese captors told him, "We found out who your father is, a 4-star admiral, and so we will release you any day." I simply asked him, knowing that you could at any moment on any day raise your hand and say, "I will accept your offer and go home," how did you endure another 5 years? My question to you, my friend and colleague, was the firing of Rory Badger honorable, Is the leadership of our current administration in its treatment of our veterans honorable? Is the value shown by the decisions being made by Elon Musk and his team at Doge honorable? Are we putting at risk the very honor of our nation in the mistreatment of the veterans of this country? This question I put to my friend and colleague.
I thank you, Senator Kuhn, by your strength of voice, by your tone, by the colleague and citizen that you invoke. You are saying the answer with strength, my friend.
Okay, yeah. Exactly, Boible.
How do we judge our nation? What measure do we judge America? Is it by how tall our buildings are? Well, those are great marvels.
Stop them.
But other countries have taller buildings. God, maybe Ezra Klein has got me so focused now on making our nation do bold and build great things, but does the speed of our rail, as an Amtrak guy, speak to the greatness of our nation? No, other nations have faster rail. Does the wealth of our people, we have more billionaires than any other country, does that speak to the greatness of our nation? No. I think the things that speak to the greatness of a nation is how do we take care of each other? How do we take care of our elders who deserve our respect and our reverence and gratitude for building America, for sustaining America, for doing the hard jobs to raise families, to set the next generation on their way? I think we should be judged by how we treat our children. They are the only true hope we have of seeing tomorrows that we will never live through. I think we should be judged by how we treat the sick. Whether it's people with the disease of alcoholism or mental health or crippling cancers or chronic diseases, what do we do? I think we should be judged by how we nurture our families. God, we put American families under crazy stress. Affordable child care, paid family leave, other nations, our competitors have these things. I think we should judge the greatness of our nation by how we treat our veterans. These honorable men and women, some of them who gave their last measure of their devotion on fields across the world, from Thailand to Gettysburg. They gave their lives. And those who came home, the America they experienced will speak to the truth of who we are. And so I'm in this place like you're in this place. We've been friends for a long time. I'm blaming you a little bit because you're one of those people I called and said, hey, I'm thinking about running for governor. I'm thinking about running for senator. You told me to come here, man. I'm joking. I love you for it. I'm honored and blessed that New Jersey sent me here. I know that you and I are working to, and let's talk like we talk when we're not on the floor of the Senate. We both are deeply devoted Christians.
Which shouldn't really be important, but apparently it is in
I've been asking you to tell
America.
that story. I hope you'll tell it, but it's just about how your parents, James Baldwin said, children are never good at listening to their elders, but they never fail to imitate them. You are a great reflection of the stories of your parents who told me. And you and I grapple with this faith of ours, which demands the most radical love. Radical love. What does the Bible say about immigrants? I mean, come on. What does the Bible say about the poor? What does the Bible say about the hated?
Oh, just that he was a Christian.
The leper, the people who are looked down upon. What's the story of the prodigal son? What's Matthew 25 say about how we should live? Even as to the least of these, you did unto me. How many times does the Bible mention poverty? How many? I'm abiding by it. I will not yield to you. But I knew you would do it, and I don't. 2,000 times it mentions poverty. And does it say we should scorn the poor? Does it say we should ignore the poor? No, it calls us to love our neighbor. No exceptions to that.
Turn this up a little bit.
Will the senator yield for a question?
Thank you, man. I've been waiting for that question. I,
Both have a ship designed to fight.
the prayers of the
Destroy
righteous
it before it attacks
availeth much. You are a righteous man. I have a lot of work to do. So I yield for a question while retaining the floor. I tried to instigate you, Chris. I tried to throw out Jesus bait.
You have, sir.
Good, thank God. I yield for a question about whatever you want to ask me for, but I'm retaining the floor.
To my good friend and colleague, as we transition to comments about the economy, are you familiar with the very first time that Jesus stood in his home synagogue in Nazareth to preach? He read from the scroll a passage from, I believe, Isaiah 61, verse 1 to 2. This is recorded in Luke chapter 4, and it is a well-known passage. And I rely upon it to understand what was the ministry of Jesus centrally about. He says, "This is fulfilled in your hearing today. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to preach good news to the poor." I don't think it is possible to read the Gospels and to read the Torah and to understand righteousness without hearing over and over and over in the course of the Old and New Testaments a call to respect those at the margins of life, a call to be generous and open-hearted and kind to those who suffer and struggle, to be attentive to and present to those who are in prison, who are widows, who are orphans, to allow the gleaning of a field, which means to make sure that out of the abundance of our productivity on our farms, we make sure that we feed those who hunger here at home and abroad. You cannot miss the central message, which is, as you have said, kindness to those on the margins, attentiveness to those in need, good news to the poor. And so in this season of Lent, I ask my friend and colleague whether he's aware of our president's intention to impose significant harder the lives of those who struggle pay for their children's
it's
food
a good point they're
and
making,
medicines and
Atomic
schooling,
Farcade.
that instead
Even
of
as a
meeting
Christian,
his
I'm kind of like,
promise to make America
I don't know if we need to use the Bible to make this point, but I know it is a language that a lot of people speak. So
for those who are exactly those to whom we are called to give attention, kindness, and service, I ask my colleague and my friend, are you aware of President Trump's so-called Liberation Day that will impose, in fact, thousands of dollars of additional costs on the working families of America who struggle so hard to make ends meet, in a direct violation of a call to care for those in need?
Yes, I'm aware. I said earlier that he calls it liberation. They won't be liberated from watching their 401ks dwindle in value as the stock market goes down. They won't be liberated from the high cost of groceries. They won't be liberated by the high cost and hard availability of housing. He calls it Liberation Day, but Americans won't be liberated from crushing debt, from medical debt, from student loan debt, parents who are struggling to take care of their parents.
That is exactly right, alcohol.
And their children.
You will be eliminated.
Who rely on Medicaid. Because a parent has Alzheimer's and a child has a disability, and they're trying to make it all work. But yet they're shackled in fear because they see that recommended to a House committee on Energy and Commerce was to find $880 billion of cuts to the programs that they are relying on as a lifeline to keep their family together. Who's liberated? Who's liberated by the tariffs that he's going to come and bring onto a country where half this nation is dealing with?
I don't know if that would be an effective sub-goal, Rachel, but we can try it.
Reality.
People give me subs to see me
renters
fly
in
a
this
California
country,
class. Let me know in
we're
chat.
both local leaders. We know it is technically the definition of housing insecurity if you are paying more than a third of your income on rent. Chris Coons, you love people, you know people, you travel Delaware, it's a much smaller state. I do say that with some little bit of twisted non-Christian arrogance and from New Jersey looking down. But you know people in your state. I've been with you in your state. You're connected to your communities.
That's 100% correct, Trexpert.
So you know people that are struggling just to make ends meet. You know people that are one emergency away, like a car accident or sickness that forces them to miss a week of work and a paycheck, that will throw their lives in financial ruin. Is this president doing his promises to make their lives better? Trump, do you think Greenland feels liberated from the bully nature? Do you think Panama feels liberated? What about universities that are cutting NIH funding, that are cutting the scientific research that will cure the diseases in the future, that will alleviate suffering, that now aren't allowing postdocs to come to their school? They're not hiring, they're slashing the number of engineering students that they're allowing in. Because they're terrified
100%,
because
Katrina.
this president is menacing indirect costs. Is that liberation? "71 days in, now 72 days.
Thank you very much for the subscription, Broseph. I
asked
appreciate
you,
it.
are you better off than you were 72 days ago economically? I asked that question. Ask it to your friends. Are they better off economically? Well, I don't see how they could be, because prices are up, stock market's down, the risk of recession is climbing, consumer confidence is in the gutter, 401k plans are losing value. Are you better off than you were 72 days ago under this president's leadership, on the verge of his so-called Liberation Day that's going to drive prices up even more? And he's doubling down on tax cuts for the rich. He wants an economy that works for him, his billionaire donors, his powerful special interests, and it's coming at the expense of working people who are struggling to get by, and a lot of the programs that they rely on, like for their health care, like for their Social Security. He wants an economy where the richest people get the biggest tax cuts, where the largest corporations, heck, they may get to skip out on taxes altogether. And where hardworking Americans are getting crushed by rising food prices and rising rents. This idea that might trickle down.
No, it's definitely a different Mike Broseph.
But we know it doesn't
I just
work.
found my...
He's continuing the same
now
reckless
take the time to
economic
try and
approach he used in his first term.
plug it in.
Massive tax cuts that
I
inure
just
mostly
found
to
my
the
mic
wealthy,
that I'd lost last
unchecked
week.
spending,
So I've been using my
rapacious
headset
spending,
mic, but...
big holes in our national debt, trillions of dollars of more debt, and no serious plan on how to pay for any of this thing that he's doing. From Social Security to public
expert
health,
no, as far as I know.
to education, to support children with disabilities and scientific research, the safety nets that millions of people depend upon. Here's the New York Times. Trump's policies have shaken measures, firing on all cylinders. Wages, consumer spending, and corporate profits were rising. Unemployment was low. The inflation rate, though higher than normal, was falling. Just weeks into Mr. Trump's term, the outlook is gloomier. Measures of business and consumer confidence have plunged. The stock market has been on a roller coaster ride. Layoffs are picking up. And by the way, this was March 7th. We just finished March, the worst performing quarter in years in the stock market. Back to the article. Layoffs are picking up according to some data, and forecasters are cutting their estimates for economic growth. And some commentators have gone further, arguing that the economy could be headed for a recession, a sharp rebound in inflation, or even the dreaded combination of the two, stagflation. Most economists consider that unlikely, saying growth is more likely to slow than to give way to a decline. A result of Mr. Trump's policies and the resulting uncertainty. Tariffs and the inevitable retaliation from trading partners will increase prices and slow down growth.
Test.
Federal
Can you hear me?
jobs cut will push up
Can you hear me?
unemployment.
Looks like
It
it.
could lead government employees and contractors to pull back on spending while they wait to learn their fate. Deportations could drive up costs for industries like construction and hospitality and the agricultural sector that depend on immigrant labor.
Oh, God, that's a
In
good
quotes.
point, Trexpert.
If the economy was
If you
starting
say
out
no,
in quite
then I
good
guess
shape,
I still know
it
it's a
probably
yes.
is in less good shape After
Yeah,
what
that's.
we've
I
seen
know
the
this
last
mic
few
sounds
weeks,
1,000
said
times
Donald
better.
Rizzmiller,
Thanks
chief
for reminding me on that,
economist
Broseph.
at Stratgas, a research firm.
Ooh, loud.
The
Okay.
U.S. economy has repeatedly shown its resilience in recent years.
Test. Better?
And there are parts of Mr. Trump's agenda
Let
that
me
could
know if
foster
that's good.
growth. Business groups have responded enthusiastically to Republican plans to cut taxes and reduce
Hey,
regulation.
Looney. Well,
A streamlined
we've got
government could, in
a
theory, make
senator,
the overall
Cory
economy
Booker,
more
who is on the
productive.
floor,
So
currently
far,
doing
however, the Trump administration's approach to economic
hour
policy
20
has
of
been
a speech
characterized
to
more
protest
by
the
chaos, tariffs that are announced and
actions
then
by the
delayed,
Trump
government
administration
workers
that
were
are in the
fired and
process of
rehired.
destroying our country.
Been
So
careful
rather
planning.
than just streaming STO
Michael
and
Strain, an economist at the
not and
conservative
hiding my head
American Enterprise
under a rock,
Institute. I know
I
AEI
decided
well.
that today we were all
Said
going to
Trump's
watch this speech
policies
together
on trade and
because it's really
immigration
important.
and his slash and burn approach to federal job cuts would have a damaging effect. This is a conservative think tank. What President Trump has proposed will not cause
there's a
recession
lot
to
of people
continue,
tuning
but it
into
will
this,
slow
I'll tell you.
economic growth. It will take money out of people's pockets. It will increase the unemployment rate. It will cost people jobs. It will make American businesses less competitive. That's AEI, folks. It is certainly possible for Mr. Trump's policies to come together in a way that causes a recession. His tariffs alone could shave a full percentage growth in
One
the
would hope
domestic
so,
products
Altani.
this year, according to some economic models. Enough to cut
Against,
in half
Looney,
the 2%
deeply,
growth rate
deeply against.
that economists expected going into this year. Many economists contend that deporting millions of immigrants, as Mr. Trump promised to do on the campaign trail last year, could be even more harmful than tariffs, given the U.S. economy's need for workers, particularly in industries like construction and healthcare. And the administration's push to shrink the federal government, an effort led by Elon Musk, could leave hundreds of thousands of federal workers and government contractors looking for jobs when hiring has slowed. That could set off a chain reaction. Workers
God, I hope
who
not
lose
Atomic.
jobs or worry they might would pull back on
Looney,
spending,
he
which
is.
would force businesses to
It's
cut
not.
costs,
Yeah, it's not a
leading to
filibuster.
more
It's a marathon
layoffs
speech,
and
but
further reductions
it's
in
to call
spending.
attention to everything that's going to happen
Ordinarily, that would
tomorrow
prompt the
when
Federal
Trump
Reserve to cut interest
does
rates and shore up the economy,
these huge
but that
tariffs
could
that
be
are going to make
difficult if
everything
tariffs
worse
are
for our
also
economy.
pushing up prices, making policymakers nervous that cutting interest rates could spur inflation.
But if he goes another couple hours,
It's
I don't know
a
how
death
many more,
by 1,000
he
paper
will have
cuts,
given
said
the
Jay
longest
Bryson
speech.
session, but if you layer them on top of one another, it might be. Most economists think such an outcome is relatively unlikely, however. Mr. Trump has repeatedly delayed full enforcement of his promised tariffs. For example, on Thursday, this article is from March 7th, he
Yeah,
suspended
exactly,
tariffs
Broseph.
on most imports from Mexico and Canada until April. What
Yeah,
month
pretty
are we
much
in?
everybody,
April.
Looney.
His deportation efforts have likewise gotten off to a slow start, and some of the cuts to the federal workforce have been tied up in court, as they should be. Such delays and reversals will help blunt the impact of Mr. Trump's policies and could make a recession less likely, at least in the short term, but the prolonged uncertainty could have its own costs, leading businesses to delay investment and hiring decisions. If we don't get clarity by the back half of this year, economic uncertainty can be like a deer in the headlights, said Nancy Lazar, chief global economist, and business confidence is muted, employment is muted.
Yeah, a big
and
part of it is
capital
just
spending
holding
put on
everything up,
hold.
grinding the government
Even
to a
if
halt
Mr. Trump's
so that people
policies
have to
don't
pay
cause
attention.
a recession, they could do
The nice
long-term
thing is,
damage.
there's been a good
Lower
job of,
immigration will leave the
this
country
actually
with a smaller
doing what he
labor
wanted it to
force
do, which is
as the
lots and lots of people are watching.
native-born population is aging. Trade barriers will be a relatively modest drag on growth while in place, a chronic condition rather than an acute one. It's less the economy is in a car wreck, and it's more like the economy has decided to start smoking a pack a day, said an economist at the Roosevelt Institute. In certain places and for certain groups, the consequences could be harder to ignore. Veterans, layoffs. So could parts of the countries that depend heavily on federal jobs. Apparently, there are signs that home prices in the Washington metropolitan area are falling.
Yes, Looney,
It's going
against.
to be substantial for
Hence
certain
why we're really
communities.
hoping Corey could beat his record.
When you look at the aggregate,
He stated that he
It's gonna be
plans to
challenging.
keep going until he physically collapses, which wildly he doesn't seem anywhere
Will the
close
senator
to.
yield for a question?
I talked or texted with this person who's asking me to yield the floor. I've been letting this power go to my head. I've never, in the Senate, had the ability to hold the floor. and leave a person in a little bit of limbo, I just want to say that Tim Kaine is one of the friends, and honestly, he's like a pastor to me. He's one of the more honorable men I've met in my life, and struggles like me about faith and public service. I read your book. I really hope more people read your book. I didn't think it was going to. It's a book about you going through your whole state.
Yeah, pretty much, Evil Mark. That's why it's probably not going to happen.
By walking the Appalachian Trail, canoeing, every story you told moved me. It's a great book. I've read a lot of my colleagues' books, but this one really touched me. You have this beautiful view of America, and I want people to read your book. I really want people to read your book. So if I should yield, I'll yield only if you'll tell people the name of your book and maybe tell something about it. This is Extortion on the Senate Floor. I'm going to hold on to the floor unless you agree to that. You can shake your head up and down if you agree. All right. Then, of course, to my dear friend and somebody that I probably wouldn't be standing here. We had some discussions about procedural opportunities and things like that. He had to make some concessions to me. I won't give details, but he's an honorable man. And in the crux, before I came here, he really helped to clear the pathway for me to stand here now. I owe you a lot of my 12 years.
I don't know what the definition is.
You are like a big brother to me, and I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Well, thank you to my friend, Senator Booker.
I hope so, Rachel. That would be great.
To watch this very, very important vigil. And the question that I'm going to ask.
All right, hold on. I'm going to grab some chocolate cookies and be right back.
Give you a chance to think
what do I think of the legendary Oprah that they announced today? Yeah.
Is a question that was
you might have gotten me, Senatorverse, if I hadn't already been on the website today to look at their influence joke.
Discussion where you were doing some Bible quoting back and forth. And as you know, I'm a big Bible reader. And the thing I thought about, and actually I've thought about it during your talk since last night, is this part of the Gospel of Matthew where he's challenging people that he thinks are hypocrites. And he says to them, you can discern the faces of the sky, but you can't discern the signs of the times. Wow. That's Matthew 16, 2 and 3. You can discern the faces of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. The way I view this vigil that you have been powerfully engaged upon is you are attempting to discern and explain the signs of the times to your colleagues and to our country.
Rachel, if you're going to throw that bet, you got to pick when he's going to pass out.
And I'd like to ask you one question about the signs of the times economically to follow the discussion.
Yeah, veterans are getting treated like
shit. But then I want to ask you a question about the signs of the times more in the nature of our democracy. So to begin, on the economy, you walked through how strong the economy was on the day this president was inaugurated. And 2 months later,
all right, so
the
we got a
challenges of a volatile stock market, the challenges of rising prices, the challenges of declining consumer confidence, the challenges of predictions that there might be slow growth or even a recession. We will have a vote on the Senate floor tomorrow about Canadian tariffs based on a resolution that I've introduced that we will have a vote on. You talked at length about those tariffs and the effect that they have on Americans, as Mr. President and others. As I've traveled around my Commonwealth, my farmers and my small businesses, they've seen it before. They saw it in Trump term 1. They know how dangerous it will be. They don't want to pay more for groceries. They don't want to pay more for building supplies. Farmers don't want to pay more for fertilizer. My shipyards don't want to pay more for aluminum and steel. They were promised that they would pay less, not pay more. They don't want to be part of a campaign to demonize a nation that has been a friend of the United States.
Are you saying
and stood
that
side
the
by side
UK
with us
still
in every war
runs
since the War of
United States?
1812? They don't want to be part of a juvenile assertion by this president that sovereign nation is the 51st state. They don't want to be part of a name-calling effort to call the prime minister of a sovereign nation governor. They're trying to read the signs of the times. Why?
Okay.
Is this
let's try to keep the wild conspiracy
theories
out of my
strong
chat.
Economic hand, doing so much so quickly to both hurt us economically, but also to tarnish a relationship that has stood the test. But first, we would all agree as members of this body in America first, but we would all passionately disagree with America alone. What is America alone gonna get us? What will we turn to? Who will we turn to when the allies that we've spent decades
I don't even know who Mike Spark is. That's
with now
weird.
feel pushed aside? Yesterday, China announced that they were going to be working with Japan and Korea on a free trade zone, possibly to respond to U.S. tariffs. Other nations are having to engage in hedging behaviors because they thought we were friends, and now they doubt that.
Thanks, Looney. I appreciate it.
Anymore. And so, as you look at the signs of these economic times, and then I'll get to a second question about, more importantly,
systemic transphobia.
How are we best to rectify it? How can
a lot of stuff we have to wreck.
Stand up for our families and reduce their burdens, not increase them? How can we stand shoulder to shoulder with linked arms with our allies to face off against adversaries? Reflect on the signs of the times and point us in the right direction. Please, question mark.
I appreciate that. I'm going to try to keep it short, but I want to reminisce with you about something that, do you remember in Trump's first term?
Am I saying I am
used a national security waiver to put tariffs on Canada then?
Yes.
Fringe
and my
theories
citizens really
with very little evidence backing them up are often
but do you
extremely
remember,
dangerous.
We had a Foreign Relations Committee meeting, and a leader in I don't want to embarrass the leader, but a leader from Canada came, it was a woman, and she sat there. It was a bipartisan group together. You do remember this?
Yes, I do.
So we marched through Canadian-American history. I confess I have a degree in history, but I didn't know all this history. But these amazing stories of Canadian sacrifice to stand next to Americans, to die next to Americans, to fight for America, to join our artists, our cultural communities, our arts, our agricultural communities, all the things we've done hand in hand to make both of our nations stronger and more prosperous. And then she looked at us and said, and then your president, in a sense, calls us a national security threat.
Chip damage? Yeah, except when it goes into huge burst damage like the U.S. is dealing with right now.
Us. And I remember the quiet, the silence around that committee table. I felt like,
the giant problem that we're all dealing with right now
this is such an ally,
is
such
capitalism.
A friend, such a
because the giant problem with capitalism
of us
is that everybody is focused on money, and that leads to folks like Trump and Musk taking over.
Her litany was so admirable. And then she looks at us, a national security waiver to Americans, and they embarrassingly hurt our northern neighbor. But I thought that was bad enough. Mm-hmm. And now...
No, I'm running on TCL audio.
What kind of bully are you? What kind of mean spirit...
It's full again.
Do you look at your northern neighbor and say, I'm going to call you governor, not with the title you earned by the people that put you in that office? It is the worst kind of behavior, and nobody calls it out. Of our Republican colleagues, not enough of them call it out, I should say. So we are in, as I read in that article, in an economic crisis, and I question how long will we wait?
Not that.
Until more of us join in a chorus and saying enough is enough. I don't know the answers. I don't know how we can stop him, but I know we did in the first term. We pushed back on him successfully on his attempts to try to take health care away from tens of millions of Americans, and we can do it again, but more people have to do things differently. They have to do like we've been talking all day, and I'll turn to my colleague again. As John Lewis called us, get in good trouble, necessary trouble, heal the soul of America. We have to do more and follow the examples of our forefathers and foremothers who never gave up, with conviction and determination, with an indefatigable spirit, unyielding grace. They continued time and time again, pushing back and bending the arc. It's our turn. What are we going to do?
Someone was complaining in Reddit chat that
but I know,
the new pulse phaser
will retain while retaining the floor.
This is a question about the signs of the times in our democracy. We will celebrate 250 years of American democracy in 2026. And I want it to be a celebration. Not a coronation, not a requiem, not a wake, but a celebration. A week ago Sunday, 250 years ago, Patrick Henry stood on the floor of Henrico Parish, now known as St. John's Episcopal Church on Churchill in Richmond, at a moment of decision where people were challenged to understand the signs of the times. at a moment of tyranny. And he asked the immortal question, and I almost view your vigil as asking the same question about where we would stand in such a moment. And there were different forks in the road, a phrase that has attained some meaning recently. And Patrick Henry said, as for me, give me liberty or give me death. You're giving a liberty speech, my colleague. You're giving a liberty speech as the nation begins to think about 250 years of democracy. The opposite of liberty, that which Henry was fighting
I think that's a good idea,
was
Ramona.
tyranny. Was tyranny. I am one that believes that we should mark anniversaries. We shouldn't just act steady state like this country was ordained and will just go on forever regardless. We're coming up on 250 years of American democracy, and there is a live question about its continued existence that this generation is grappling with.
Be careful. I don't know what's waiting for us at the bottom.
Henry gave that speech at St. John's Church, and a few months later, July 4, 1776, the U.S. declaration began. And at various points along the way, during the 1850s, say, or during the 1950s,
I hope I won't get a copyright strike for C-SPAN. I think this is in the public interest, but if I do, I
whether
do.
the experiment will continue or not. Some of our national, not an assertion, not a declaration, but whether the flag will still stand over the home of the free and the land of the brave, question mark. The state flag that
You'll be able to get
Virginia
out of jail.
adopted
Thanks,
on
Dales.
July 5, 1776 is a most unusual
Might become
flag.
necessary eventually.
It has a woman representing Roman virtue standing astride a deposed tyrant whose crown is knocked off, who is holding a broken chain in his toplessness, which occasionally creates some raciness in schools as students ask about it. But it's also the flag with the most unique state motto of any state. All states have mottos. 49 states' mottos are positive. Hope, Eureka, Excelsior, onward and upward, ad astra per aspera. Michigan's has the most unusual positive motto. In Latin, if you seek a pleasant peninsula, look around you.
I think I can get
Well, I wasn't looking for a peninsula, but I'd rather it be pleasant than not. Virginia's is the only flag and the only state with the thus be it always, thus be it ever to tyrants. George Wythe, Thomas Jefferson's teacher, was in charge of designing the flag and chose that as the motto. Think about the verb tense, right? It's the only one that's a rebuke, and it has stayed on our state seal and state flag since July 5, 1776. Many state flags have been changed in the last 20 years. Utah's changed, Minnesota's changed, Mississippi's changed, Georgia's changed. Virginia has essentially not changed since 1776. Neither the figure of virtue standing astride a deposed monarch or the motto, sic semper tyrannis, again, the verb tense, semper, future tense, thus be it
Dexter,
always
is that your language?
to tyrants, thus be it ever to tyrants. The Virginia
code
flag
thing?
that we pass by in Virginia every day without thinking about it, it's in every
That's
school
the
we
hope,
pass
Rachel.
it by. It asks us two questions 250 years later. Do we retain the ability to recognize tyranny? Do we retain the virtue to defeat it? Can we recognize tyranny? Can we retain the virtue to defeat it and our fidelity to it? And so my question to you would be, what gives you hope that the answer we will give to these questions as Americans, as those commemorating a quarter millennium of American democracy, what gives you confidence that we will answer these questions in a way that will honor those who came before us?
I want to answer that question. I want to first say that Hakeem Jeffries is here. And now I'm worried because two Brooklynites are shaking hands. And I confess, when I had the floor and Schumer was,
Yeah,
for the
that's
only
true,
time in my
Rachel.
life I could deny him the right to speak on the Senate floor.
Everybody has the right to
I
what
confess
they
to my friend,
believe.
who's part of the X
I
generation,
would say
hip hop generation, My brother,
it's
who
become
is part of this transition in American history, from
clearer
the
and
greatest
clearer
generation to the baby boomers, from the baby boomers
the
now.
people who claim
we're
to
seeing
be
leaders emerge that are ex-Geners, millennials, and he
running on
represents
conservative values
so much of the best of the future. I want to, before this
don't
question
have
is so
everyone's
good.
best interest at heart, and it
Okay,
makes me
you
a
didn't
slightly
honor
less
your
tolerant
commitment to me and
of
talk about your book.
religious
But I just want to
stuff in
say that I
general.
insulted Brooklyn for stealing my nets. I told the leader, this is like, I should have reminded the leader that the chairman of the board who sings New York, New York is actually from New
savoir-faire, is that
Jersey.
how we find?
I think many of us have read books like On Tyranny, and we're doing a lot. We're reading
Yeah,
articles
exactly,
where people are
Trexper.
talking about the fears that they have.
I don't want to go too hard on this
because
because I don't want to like single out.
And you and I have had
out
serious
Rachel.
conversations
I know
over
that
the
you're
last
not
72 days of Donald Trump's presidency.
personally,
how much of the encroachments, I would say,
you know,
encroachment
trying
is
to
a
get rid of
gentle word,
immigrants or trans
of the
people
separation
or
of powers is
black
happening.
people.
We're watching
But
justices.
it's always
or
important to
judges
think of things in the name
great
of people
Bill of
like
Rights
you.
amendments from freedom of the press.
Killed the spawn mother. That's
Yeah, I'm
He's
sad
doing
I haven't
things to
found
the
a Nazi
press
to punch, honestly.
that, in my opinion, are bullying them, breaking with traditions that presidents have done in the past, trying to create press corps like Putin or Erdogan have, where they only let people in the room who will give obsequious supplications, often for the dear leader. What about the freedom of speech? You and I both know the
I'm not
reprehensible
really sure
speech
what
is
your
protected.
point is there, savoir-faire.
Disappearing people for
Think
what
you're
they
being
said.
sarcastic?
Scalia talked very clearly about
But the most
having
important
rights
thing we can
even
do
when
in
you're
this world is take care of each other. If your politics or your decisions or your beliefs are not about taking care of each other, then to freedom, to dignity, to respect, and that's what I will always be on the side on. That's what we should always be on the side on of. I don't think just seen that the majority can be fear-mongered into things like the current hate on trans people that Broseph is talking about. We can't allow that to happen. We have to stop that. We can't allow attacks on our friends and our neighbors. It has to stop. And that's one of the reasons why we're taking time to watch this today as well as our usual stream.
Stamper. They called her on her documents mulatto, and Stamper fought for her ownership because it would later come out that that was his child. And these are the traditions in my family. It's really amazing what Skip Gates did, and showed me that I'm the direct descendant of slaves and slave owners. I'm the direct descendant of a Confederate soldier that was captured in retreat. I'm a direct descendant of Native Americans and people that fought in the Creek Wars to kill Native Americans. And this traditions in our country, I draw upon all of them. I'm proud of all, and they speak to us. They speak to the complicated history of America. But perhaps one of the best things I got about this complicated history was a visit to my office by, I don't know if I told the leader this. I'm sorry, I'm going to return to this question, but I think I know how busy the leader is. So I will, if the leader asks me a question, I will, if he asks if I'll yield for a question.
Yes, will the senator yield for a question?
I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Now, before I ask my question, what a tour de force. You are amazing. You have, it's not only the amount of time that you have spent here on the floor, what strength, but the brilliance of your indictment of this awful administration that is so destroying our democracy, that is taking so much away from working people in the middle class, and at the same time, all for tax cuts for the billionaires.
Yeah, that's
You're
pretty
amazing.
much it,
We
Looney
salute
Welsh.
you. America salutes you. All eyes are
My only
on
thing I would
you.
add to that is
You're
that I do
incredible.
care
Now,
if you're
here
all of
is
those things because
my
they're an
question
important
that
part
is
of your
related
identity.
to what our Republican
But I don't
friends
care.
are trying to do.
Like, I'm not
to all
going to
the
treat you any
things that
different
you were
because you
so
want one of those
opposed.
things.
So are you aware
Except for in ways that will
that while you were here
treat you
on
with
the
the
floor
respect you deserve.
today, Senate Republicans are declaring that using the current policy baseline is up to Lindsey Graham, not the parliamentarian. I believe that this is going nuclear, and it shows how hell-bent they are on giving tax breaks to the rich, even if it goes nuclear, even if it violates all the norms that they have had, even if it breaks all the promises they have made. Do you agree with me that this is just a move that is so against what the traditions of the Senate have been about, but not just the traditions of the Senate?
They stare with their teeth is both accurate and a great name for a horror novel, Dexter.
They're afraid to debate them. They're afraid to defend tax cuts for billionaires. They're afraid to admit they're taking away Medicaid from so many Americans. And so they come up with this nuclear option.
No, totally, Looney. I knew what you meant. I just wanted to add my own clarifications to it.
They don't care anymore about norms, about rules, and even about going nuclear, which the leader, the Republican leader, and all of them said, oh no, they're not going to do that. Well, now they say they're going to do it. What does the senator think? Does he agree with me that it's going nuclear? Does he agree with me that is a self-seeking for the billionaires, which is what they're doing, way of proceeding?
Chuck, not 100% right now, and you just hit me with stunning news that I can't even think about how to respond right now. I'm stunned by that. I wish, if you want to ask me a question, it has to be a question. I wish you would explain it a little bit more, because what you're basically saying to me is that we're not going to go through the parliamentarian, that this is a gimmick that is going to be done to try to break really what the Byrd rule requirements of reconciliation. I'm using Senate speak, and I don't think we should use that. So what they're going to try to say is obscure the impact of the reconciliation. They're going to obscure this, the incredible tax cuts, the cost of trillions of dollars to our economy, blowing up our debt. So-called fiscal hawks are going to blow it up. I'm stunned by this news.
So if asking the senator, the great Senator Booker, a question.
I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Does he agree that this is just a blow to the people of America, and it shows that the people on the other side are only interested not in playing decent, not in playing fair, not in being honest with the American people, but taking money out of the pockets of working people and the middle class and putting it in the hands of billionaires? Is that something that this country
yeah, at least he's trying to do something,
countenance
Altani.
Because it does so much harm to the country and does it not show what our colleagues are really like and what they're after?
Yes, the answer to those questions is yes, but I just want to more say it's the further breaking of the Senate in a severe way.
I mean, he's bandwagoning on
breaking of the Senate.
Something that Corey is doing, which is
every time you break the Senate like that, to do another big nuclear option thing, the next time around, when the pendulum swings, I've been here for 12 years, I've watched it swing back and forth, there's no going back now.
Would the senator yield for another question?
I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Does the senator remember that when this was done in the past, McConnell said they would regret it, and they'll regret it sooner than they think?
I hate to answer the question this way, but America will regret this day. American people will regret this day. All of us will regret this. All of us will.
I hate to bring the senator bad news, but I'm asking him a question.
Yes.
And I needed his answer, given how eloquent he has been about what America should be and what America should not be. And
this is one of the few times in my life I'll ever get to tell Chuck Schumer what the rules are here. But I just want to get back to you, and maybe there's a better way to get to you by sharing a story I don't think I've ever told you. It was a few years ago. With one of
Yeah,
Biden's
basically,
last, State
if
of
he
the Union
yields the
speeches.
floor, Nels,
And
if
we all
he
had
just
to vote
says
on the
"I
floor about
yield,"
an hour
that
before
means
the
that his
speech,
time
and
on the
then-
floor is done, and that
and
the
then
speech
we,
that he's been giving this whole time will
would
be
come back
officially
here and
over at
assemble
that
to do
point.
this
So he can say "I
extraordinary
yield"
walk.
for a question, but don't yield the floor, which means when the person is
extraordinary
done
walk,
asking the question,
through
he will
history.
still have the floor and still be
so,
able to continue doing this
days
marathon
before
speech.
that, I was with the leader Hakeem, and I was with some other people in the Oval Office with the president, and the president had put his arm around me as we finished the meeting and said, "Hey, Corey." I'm like, "Yes, Mr. President. I got a big and work on it." And I said, "Okay, Mr. President." He goes, "Can I call you
more
if I
than
need some
20
help?" And I
hours,
said,
Lenny
"Yes,
Welch.
right, Mr. President. Sure." And that was it. The weekend he didn't call me for help with his speech, and we came here and did that vote an hour before, and then I like walking out that door, and many people know this. I like going, if I can, I go straight out the next doors onto the steps. I love those steps. Maybe because I watched Schoolhouse Rock as a kid, and that's where Mr. Bill, I'm just a Bill. And so I pause sometimes there and just feel this sense of gratitude, and the Supreme Court right in front of me, the Library of Congress, and stand in the right place, see the gold dome behind you. And as I'm standing there in that moment, an hour before we have to hustle back here, my phone rings. I answer my phone, and it begins with what I think is one of the top stupidest questions in America. You've gotten this question. I think you would agree with me. You're not the kind of guy that uses words like, "Hey, this is stupid," but this is stupid. The thing I heard, the stupid question, this is the White House operator. Will you hold does when they get a call from the President of the United States? And so I say, yeah, I will hold. I'm no, wait a minute, I'm washing my hair, you know? I say, yes, of course. The next thing you know, I know you weren't this kind of student in college, but all my guilt from my college days of waiting to the last minute to finish paper were gone. The President of the United States is waiting to the last minute to finish a speech. Heck, I feel good. And so he goes, "Corey, can I read you a section of the speech?" And he read me a section of the speech where I have a lot of policy depth, and I couldn't believe it. The President of the United States, hour before his speech, rehearsing.
Are we back? Did you guys lose me? It says I'm still streaming. My computer just completely froze for a second. Okay, but are we back? Can you guys see me, or am I gone? It looks like I'm gone now. Okay, I think I'm gone. Let's close OBS. Wait. There was a hiccup, and now I'm back. C-SPAN gave out. Okay, but I'm back, and you guys can see me, and it looks like I'm moving. All right, good. Stream is either down or has ended. That is somewhat concerning. Okay. All right, I think that my browser has frozen. So, can I get this up? Thank you. Wow, my computer has acted funny. Okay, close all windows. Let's just bring that back up. See what happens.
Wow. Action on our first scene in Denali National Park. Let's go. Frame.io is...
Question, when your spouse looks at you and says, "How do I look?" You're torn between two things, right? Maybe to tell the truth or tell your spouse what they want to hear. Tell me what you answer with. You can't do it now because I have the floor. And so I take a moment. Am I going to tell the president what I really think of the section, or am I going to just say, "Yes, Mr. Leader"? So I decided, he called me up hour before speech. He must really want my advice, and I gave some hard input. Turn this dial down more, turn this one to whatever. And he said, "Okay, Corey." Abruptly, he's gone. I go home to the office, back to the office. I tell my chief of staff, "I just got a call from the President of the United States. He asked for help with a speech." What a crazy life moment while I stood on the steps like the Bill. I'm just a Bill. Anyway, we get back here, and it's a wonderful moment in the Senate. I don't know
By the
if
way, I
anybody
love the idea of
has the
Badgie
privilege
versus the Bill,
of seeing
but
what we do. We all
I'm rooting for
gaggle
the
around
Bill.
those doors. We talk to each other. People think we always fight and yell. That's not the case. Democrat, Republican merge into this ball senatorial humanity, and then those doors open,
I've got two
I
of these.
love it. Because you walk out. You walk past Thune's office, which used to be the Library of Congress. You walk past the old Senate chamber, where some of the greatest debates in American history and violence on that Senate
It's
floor.
over, Radigan. I do not yield the floor.
You walk through the dome. A statue by an 18-year-old woman named Reams of Lincoln. The suffrage leaders, Martin Luther King, presidents, extraordinary presidents. Then you walk past where the old house used to meet. And you love this, I love this, those little gold plates on the floor where presidents had their desks, exactly where the presidents have their desks. Most people go in right under Junipero Serra, California's statue. Under that cross is Lincoln's gold plank, people that were in the House and served in the presidency. That's not my favorite one, though. It's John Quincy Adams. Why? He collapsed, was carried off the floor. He would soon later die. Amazing. Maybe a future president will. Maybe Obama's going to get, and I got to run for House. Then you get into that old chamber. And we sit down, we find our seats, and that great moment, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, when that person walks in and says, "The President of the United States of America," I still get that feeling. Joe Biden comes in, and I think he sets a record for the longest it would take to get from those doors all the way down. Everybody he's talking to, Marjorie Taylor Greene, what's up? He's just touching everybody. He gets up there, he gives a speech. Now, you know that this is an aerobic event. You stand up, you sit down, you stand up, you sit down. You got to get your squats in when you're doing it. Get the exercise for a little while. Well, this part of the speech he called me on is, and I'm sitting down, and I hear my input in the speech. I don't know if you all noticed it, my colleagues, but I was the first person to stand up for that section. And I was looking at shots. Get up, man. This is the best speech ever given. It was amazing. I go home, I'm kind of buzzing about the whole experience, and then I'm lying in bed, and I unfortunately have my phone on my nightstand. It goes off, and I see a number I don't recognize. I open it up, and it says, Senator Booker, this is John Meacham, the great historian. Thank you for helping the President of the United States with this speech. You made more of a difference than you'll ever know. And my first thought was, how do I print this out? How do you print out a text? So he gave me his cell phone number, and now I'm going to troll him. I'm going to keep calling him until this historian comes to my office, and finally he relents, and he comes. And now he steps into your domain, my brilliant friend of history. I express worry, fear, concern, demagoguery in our land, rising of tribalism. I dump on it. And he listens for a while. And then he looks at me and says, "Corey, there's nothing about this time that is unprecedented. It's all precedented. You want to talk about demagoguery?" And he goes through every generation of Americans having extraordinary demagogues. I read Margaret Chase Smith's incredible speech on this floor against the demagogue and the demagoguery within our own party. He talks about the number one radio show in all of America. The majority of Americans listen to his anti-Semitic screeds. Father Coughlin. He went through them all. It said that this guy was calling for a military takeover of our democracy. You want to talk about authoritarianism? He talked about a senator here on the left, Huey Long, who was calling for the people to storm the Capitol. He went through this all, and he said every single time Nazis in Manhattan at Madison Square Garden. I couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. I wish people were there listening to this guy as he went through all these times when America was at a crossroads, when we came upon a moral moment. And he said, what happened, how we chose the right path, when people were trashing this document or treading on it or undermining it, when demagogues rose to the highest points of popularity in our land, how did we stop it? Well, he looked at me with some sympathy and said, not you guys, not a senator. It was that the better majority of American people said enough. They chose to define the soul of our country. He gave that phraseology to our president.
The equations.
And he said the soul of America is not the people in office. It is the everyday citizens who choose the better angels of their nature, who choose right over wrong, who recognize a moral moment and know that they have to stand up and bend the arc of the moral universe, or more importantly, steer the ship of our state out of the troubled waters into the clear, open sea. I wrote
for the raid, Atom. Hold on, I'll pause this.
Chris Murphy and I
just for 1 second, just to explain what's going on. We are playing some Star Trek Online, but we are also, as I've mentioned at the start of the stream, Senator Cory Booker is doing a marathon speech on the Senate floor. He's been going for more than 20 hours now to protest the god-awful current administration of the United States and all the links of equations in Google while we're listening to him, and we will have it going. We'll have it going for the rest of the stream as well.
Government that can never be fixed. As one of the speakers that came into our
I have
caucus,
enjoyed the artisanal audio today.
the people that wrote the book, How Democracies Die. Great nations, great civilizations, forget democracies, don't necessarily die from external threats. They die from internal corruption. Look, think of the Roman Empire. Think of the Soviet Empire, crumbled from its own corruption, failure to live up to its promises and ideals. We are at this moment. I am here to tell you, America, to tell my friends and colleagues and anybody who cares to listen to a senator from New Jersey that we are, God, if there's not enough to upset you, to ignite you, to realize that maybe you and your family are not getting hurt, but other Americans are, our veterans are, our seniors are. We've told their stories here over these last 21 hours, 22 hours. We've told their stories. People are getting hurt. People are afraid. People are worried. And people I don't even agree with are getting disappeared. Law firms that I've known for my entire career, are being forced to kowtow to this president. Universities that should be the bastions of free speech, free thought, free enterprise, intellectual research, academic research, scientific research, are getting torn up by cutting indirect costs. I read stories of PhD programs that are virtually being canceled from the best scientific minds, not being able to build the state-of-the-art labs. The country that has led humanity in scientific invention is taking a blow. And Fareed Zakaria, I read his article here, and he's saying that China is doubling down on investments on the universities as this president is cutting them, unless, of course, you come to the leader and make all these commitments, meet all of these demands.
No, that's patently not true.
There should be enough already. It should be enough already. And so this is that moment John Meacham told me about. I want us to try in the Senate. I know my colleagues. I see Tammy Bowles. I see Chris Murphy. I see Angela Alsbrooks. I love you guys. I've served side by side with you. I know your passion. I've heard your anger. You demands we could try to do things differently. In fact, we must. I will definitely yield to Tammy Baldwin, my friend and my colleague.
To another question.
Thank you very much. I don't have that much gas in the tank, but hold on, let me say it right.
Thank you very much for the subscription, Setiverse. I appreciate it.
I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Savoir faire, wherever you're reading this stuff, just so you know, they're tricking you. It might seem
which I suppose is
normal.
nearly perhaps others have come to the floor to talk about it, but you were just talking about how great democracies are shredded, sometimes from within.
I hope you're not cheering on him passing out, Rachel.
One of the pieces of breaking news today was the mass firing of our nation's public health agency within it. Today it was reported that the Health and Human Services Department began firing up to 10,000 more people. More than the previous firings, including researchers, scientists, support staff, and senior leaders. These are people who are doing work to keep our children safe from preventable illnesses, and researchers who are searching for cures and treatments for diseases that plague our families, like cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's. And look, we can all agree that government could be and should be more efficient. But here is where I disagree with the unelected Elon Musk and people like our president. People stopping the spread of measles. Researchers finding cures for Alzheimer's disease are not waste, fraud, or abuse. The slash and burn that is being led by
that too,
Elon Musk's
impressive.
Doge.
I hope he
will
takes
make
care of himself,
Americans less
but I also
healthy,
really hope he breaks the record.
less safe. And Elon Musk's Doge and Donald Trump are callously ripping away treatments, cures from millions of Americans suffering from Alzheimer's disease, cancer, ALS, and other devastating diseases. Behind these cures are and most devoted. They keep our nation healthy and our economies running. But this administration is not respecting their work, their mission. And I have to point out the why. What is the why to all of their actions? Today announced that they're starting that slashing of 10,000 workers within the Department of Health and Human Services. By the way, with more in store, because last week they announced an reorganization that would result in 20,000 people losing their jobs. But what is the why? Ripping the rug out, getting the money that Elon Musk and Donald Trump need to cut taxes for themselves and billionaires like them. And yes,
Broseph,
big
I
corporate
100%
tax
agree.
breaks. They are cutting cancer cures for corporate tax breaks. Senator Booker, these cuts to health and human services are going to crush families in Wisconsin, whether it be people not having hope for
this is all about
cure
just people
for
making
a
money.
disease, or to the workers who are doing this groundbreaking research all across the United States, who are going to be who you represent.
I'm so grateful for the question, because that's what we said we were here about.
One thing I don't know, and maybe if somebody's a
We're here
historian
to try to elevate
in chat,
the voices of people affected
knows
by
more about it.
what they're doing to our government. And frankly,
if there's a
I say cut the Department of Education completely, or the Consumer Finance
brain
Protection
shutting down.
Bureau. They're getting rid of agencies that were created by Congress,
questions
and
being asked can't
many people are right to believe that it can't be eliminated without congressional
I don't know if there's a time
action.
limit on those or not.
And we were talking before with people here that the majority, the biggest plurality of people being laid off from all of these departments are our veterans. And again, I'm going to be back in New Jersey this weekend. I'm going to try to be at a rally, a town hall. I know everywhere I go in my state, I'm going to hear from people who are rightfully angry, who are rightfully afraid, who are affected by this, who are fearful of what's to come. These are such important human emotions. But the question then is going to be for all of us, and I know people will be questioning me, what are we going to do? What can I do? What are you going to do, Senator? And so I don't have a brilliant response. I don't have some prescient idea that we are going to be able to change the course of this, but I know we're going to fight. And I want to be honest with you. I wasn't sure we could stop Donald Trump when he tried to take down the ACA. I just wasn't sure. I really wasn't. I did not know how that would end. People gasped. Do you remember that in this room? People gasped. We did not know. It was really, this room usually has very predictable actions. That's why I'm still standing here, because I didn't want the predictable. I didn't want business as usual to happen. It's rare that we have unpredictability on this floor. It's usually finely orchestrated. You and I both know this, but that day, no one expected that, or at least wasn't sure. It was drama. It was a moment. And we won. And I want to tell you this, I said this earlier, when I say we won, I don't think there's one senator here and the 99 others that convinced John McCain of his vote. I know who did, though, Arizonans who stood up, who spoke up and demanded more from their leadership, not to hurt people, not to hurt folks who needed that health care.
I do want to know, Oberth is next Monday. I said first Monday in April.
I am one of these people who wants to learn from our history. I want to stand here today and tell you I'm going to do everything I can. I'm willing to go to some lengths. but I am inadequate. You are inadequate. We're senators with all of this power, but in this democracy, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. This is a moral moment that more Americans need to stand up and say enough is enough.
He is 100% right about that.
I'm sorry.
Please be
Civil
calling your
rights movement
senators if
wasn't
you
won
can.
Because of just a few
Even if you
black
can't,
folks
there's
who stood
services
up and
that'll
were
do it
really
for you.
articulate. No, they called to the conscience of this country, and the country responded. And it was a rainbow coalition that said, this ain't who we are in America. So I know New Jerseyans are hurting. I know I've been to your state. I love your state. I love sitting side, but we had some fun in your state together. We saw young artists, business people. You are this person that says this word over and over again, more than any Republican or Democrat, buy American, and created so many jobs in your state. We were in some packed restaurants. People packed, not to see me as a special guest, but to listen to your story. You are a trailblazer too in this Senate. You are doing things that our founders did not expect, and you know that. And you
Hey, I
want to
lived in
stand
Jersey
up.
for
I
a
heard you
while.
in our caucus. I heard you in the Schumer's leadership
Whatever you like
meeting,
best, Rachel.
standing up for people that are most marginalized, most looked down on, most talked about. I hear you, Tammy.
Will the senator respond to another question?
I won't respond to a question. I'm going to read this for the 75th time. I will yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Thank you, Senator Booker. You just talked about
You know,
your
Trexpert,
visit
try it
to
anyway.
Wisconsin.
A lot of
We've
the
had
things
many.
that they're doing
But there was
are
one that you're talking about that I
trying
remember
to
really
crush
well
us with
and really
despair.
fondly. I
But
had
if
the privilege
thousands
hosting
of
you
constituents
and
call
showing
them,
you
they
what our
kind of
state
have
had
to listen.
offer.
Yes.
Something that I likely bragged about then, like I often do, is that the Badger State is known for making things. While I know you don't indulge in all of the things that we do make, because of course we have our iconic products like beer and brats and cheese, but we also build motorcycles and big industrial ships and engines that power our Navy and so much more. That's right. Make one too.
Yes.
Build them. And of course, behind it all is our workers, as you were just talking about. And whether they are in a marsh harvesting cranberries, we're number one in cranberry production.
Samuel Fair, I'm putting you on a little bit of a
I know,
timeout.
but we're
friend.
number one. Not that I'm competitive here. Or economy go
Well,
round.
I'm glad you're here, Ramona.
And so naturally, they are the ones we should be prioritizing in all of our policy. But that's not what this administration is doing. They are going to get a slap across the face when the administration slaps across the board tariffs
That's the only way I know to
and gets us into a trade war.
I can see that we think
And
the
it's
same
going
way.
to be these words. They worry about their businesses. You met so many of them when
Just to
I
be
hosted
clear, the
you.
reason
Their
I timed,
livelihoods, their communities. They're worried because
let's
we
stop
have
a fair
all
out is I just
been
don't
here before.
we don't need constant
Wisconsin was one of the hardest hit states by
discouragement.
retaliatory tariffs last time Donald Trump
and living in a
started
world
trade
where
war.
there is no hope and nothing can
During
be done.
Donald Trump's
is not
last
helpful.
trade war, American farmers lost $27 billion in export sales. And according to further records, the state's economy lost more than $3 billion worth of product sales, product exports.
I mean, the big thing
and
I
our
would say
manufacturing economy in
is,
Wisconsin.
what do you have to lose? For those of you who are,
well,
living
we
in red
lost,
states where you don't want to call your
about
representatives because they won't listen.
$26 billion.
Adding another
in,
voice to the pile
exports
could have an effect.
you know
Maybe
what?
it won't. But
the exports
don't gain
that
you don't
Wisconsin
lose anything by
manufacturers
trying.
make is supported by more than 460,000 jobs. And our agricultural economy is supported by 350,000
That is very true.
jobs. And so a trade war would be devastating.
Local ones are more responsive,
to
absolutely.
the workers of Wisconsin. And then the prices. People have been struggling with the high price of things in grocery stores, at gas stations.
Oh, it's big boy.
A number of our business leaders have spoken out about the impending tariffs. Ariens Company in Brillion, Wisconsin, which makes outdoor power equipment like snow blowers, told Reuters News that policy whiplash in this arena is making it difficult to plan, especially as price hike J4, that, and I quote, "I don't like this tariff business. It's going to be on the backs of farmers because we have to depend on the world to export our
I believe it,
commodities."
Trexpert, but I also
He
believe
highlighted,
that there comes
the
a certain
dependency
point
of
where
the
these
dairy
people
industry
care
on
more
global
about
trade,
their
noting
jobs.
that 15 to 20%
And if they get the impression that
of
their
dairy products are
constituents are
absolutely devastating. We've seen this before.
No matter how straight
Again,
up
in
evil they
service to a big tax break for billionaires and corporations.
No,
but
that's
to
great,
my
Nels.
my esteemed colleague from New Jersey, thank you for visiting the state of Wisconsin. And I want to ask what the impact would be in New Jersey. What would President Trump's tariffs mean for the workers of the Garden State?
Focus it there because that's who President Trump made promises to in my state. That things are bad with this economy because it's not serving people who are working every day. Promised that he would make things better. I'll make grocery prices go down. He said that. And so people are expecting that's where he'd focus. They didn't think he'd focus on Greenland. Didn't think they'd focus on the Gulf of Mexico. Didn't think he'd focus on bullying Canada. Didn't think he'd focus on turning his back on Ukraine. Didn't think that he'd focus on gutting the Department of Education and ending it. This is not the reason why people voted for them. They did something that Reverend Warnock calls as a vote is a sort of prayer. He says it's like a civic prayer that I'm putting a prayer out there that you will be who I hope you can be. You will be a blessing to my life and not a burden. But you're talking about the burdens that he's bringing. This economy under 72 days has not gotten better for working Americans, and they don't even see the president trying to make it better. They see what he's doing to make it worse, and one of the things is going to be these tariffs, which are going to raise costs
Dexter,
on working Americans. Then what Chuck Schumer said to me, it's sounding like it's going to just sail through a plan that's going to blow trillions of dollars of holes into our budget, give trillions of dollars of tax cuts to the wealthiest, and gut your Medicaid, and gut your services for your grandparents in nursing homes. People believe, people put their trust. I don't blame them. They're my fellow Americans. They wanted for them families, they wanted an America that was more affordable. They wanted America to be first prioritized. They wanted a safer America, stronger America, more prosperous America. I heard that. And so I know when I'm back home this weekend, I know that I'm going to encounter a lot of folks who are workers in my state who are getting hurt. They want better. They want better from their government. And so the burden upon us and each other is, what are we going to do? Are we going to do the same old thing over and over again? Or are we going to try to do things different? Are we going to be willing to, again, get in good trouble, necessary trouble, to try to save the soul of this nation? I think my colleague, my dear sister, my prayer partner, my soul lifter.
I know exactly what you mean, Trexper.
I thought I heard you say something?
Yes. Will the senator yield for a question?
Yes. I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Well, I first of all want to thank you so much again, Senator Booker, for your spiritual obedience. And I think it's necessary for me to say as well today to you, on behalf of so many of us who are watching right now, how extraordinarily proud we are of you. I would dare say that you are, in so many ways, our ancestors' dream, and how powerful it is for all of us who are watching to recognize that in this very chamber you are standing today, 67 years after this podium was used, for the 24 hours that you have used the podium that was used to block the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1957, and today you've taken over the podium. Sacrificed your own comforts. You have suffered over 22 hours to stand here today to talk instead about the greatness of America, and to speak about it in such a way that reveals the love you feel. Stand up and speak truth to power, to not hold back when calling out these callous and inhumane acts that are perpetrated by this president against the American people. And when I talk about the American people, we know who we're talking about: against our veterans, against our seniors, against our children from every corner of our country. And I want to talk specifically today about our children. Mahatma Gandhi noted that the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. This president is failing America's children, and he's doing so by harming our education system. We remember as well very fondly when Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." And I think many of us
the point of it,
recognize that is
isn't
exactly
about hearing
why
back. The point
we're
of it is
seeing
just
all of the
to let
attacks that
them
we've seen
know
on
how
this
you
system,
feel.
because we recognize that
They're supposed to represent
education
you, whether you voted
allows
on
us
them
to
for them or
change the
not.
world. Last Friday, Secretary McMahon shut yet another critical lifeline off to our states and our schools, canceling extensions that the department had previously granted to states to draw down their COVID relief money. States like Maryland originally got extensions to finish spending the remainder of these critical dollars on long-term projects, like teacher recruitment, tutoring, and other services for students. We know in particular Anne Arundel Public Schools brought Chromebooks for students with their funds, but Maryland still has millions that have already been clawed back, frozen, or withheld from the state by this administration. These are funds that districts like ours from all across the country were using for school construction projects and
I
mental
totally
health
feel
supports
that,
for students.
Broseph.
This administration is
But that's what they
refusing
want.
to
They want you to
acknowledge
give
the
up and stop
lasting
fighting.
effects of the pandemic on our nation's students. Cruelly stripping educational opportunities, dollars that have already been allocated, dollars that have already been earmarked by Maryland and our local districts for projects that will help all of our students. Our schools planned and committed these funds in good faith. In good faith. Our states have acted in good faith, and this administration is acting in bad faith, pulling the rug out from underneath them, blowing a hole in their education budgets. Our governor had this to say, and
That
I
is
quote,
exactly
"The
right,
clawback
Mills.
of these previously committed funds
Keep
would
going,
place an
everybody.
undue burden on our school systems and undermine our collective efforts to strengthen education across the state." And this is only the latest attack on public education by this administration, the latest attack on our schools and our students, the latest attack on our teachers. And we saw this administration attack HBCUs by freezing funds for the 1890 School Scholars Program, which provides tuition for students at our land-grant institutions. We saw this administration and Secretary McMahon slash teacher training grants, which help prepare our educators to serve our communities. We saw this
I still can't believe
administration
Linda fucking
proposing
McMahon is the
to
Secretary of
move the
Education.
student loan program to the Small Business Administration, threatening students' access to aid and the promise of higher education. We saw this secretary and this administration lay off half of the staff at the Department of Education several weeks ago, firing over 1,300 staffers. And I want to talk for a minute about who the department fired. And by the way, these are people who are not incompetent. These are people who are not DEI. These are professionals, well-educated. The administration fired civil servants at the department's Office of Civil Rights and shuttered Office of Civil Rights regional offices, including the regional office that handles discrimination cases. And I want to make really clear, and I want the American people to hear this, that what decimating the Department of Education and the Office for Civil Rights means, it means that attorneys who intervene when schools ignore complaints from students who are repeatedly called racial slurs or who are subjected to hateful speech or imagery like swastikas on campus. It provides the technical assistance that schools need to train staff on anti-harassment, practices, combat harmful behaviors, and build welcoming environments. And it holds K through 12 schools and colleges that fail to keep students safe accountable. It ensures that families have recourse if their child with a disability is not being served appropriately by their district, that if a child is not getting the speech therapy or other services outlined in their individualized education program, that they will have an advocate to help them. And at the time that this administration took over, there were over 270 open Office for Civil Rights cases impacting 1.3 million students in my state alone. Without enough OCR staff to do the job, investigators' caseloads will grow to an untenable level. So we spoke to some of the lawyers that work in the division that serves Maryland schools, and all of these patriotic civil servants, all they want to do is to do their jobs. They want to combat discrimination in our schools. They want to ensure that every child has the opportunity to learn in a safe environment, and these civil servants don't know that that mission is possible, as they and so many of their colleagues are ruthlessly fired by this administration. These cuts are catastrophic. I dare say that they, like so many other decisions by this administration, are wicked. And so, Senator Booker, here is my question.
Like the movie.
What are you hearing from families in the state of New Jersey?
I'm so grateful for the question from my friend, and that's the centering that we've been trying to do, which is what are families in New Jersey and around America thinking? As you said, the Department of Education, and we read that earlier today.
Come on, Corey, keep going.
It doesn't dictate or educational policy to states, but it does do a lot to fund funding for special needs kids in the states. And so I'm already hearing from parents of kids with special needs and what the impact it will have if those resources are cut. Everything from the programs that help children young people afford college, to programs that I've worked with people that help schools afford advanced scientific equipment so the bright minds, the geniuses of our state and the country can have the equipment they need.
2.5 hours to go.
This administration is cutting things that are hurting families, and we are hearing from them. We're hearing from veterans. We're hearing from the elderly. We're hearing from people that are taking care of the elderly. We're hearing from people who run our hospitals. We're hearing from people that run our universities and who talk about the science funding and the cutting of PhDs. We're hearing from people who rely on Medicare and Medicaid, who rely on Social Security. We're hearing from people that are appalled that their nation bullies smaller nations like Canada or Greenland. We're hearing from people that are shocked at what they're doing to the most vulnerable people who come to our nation, who have American children, who have American spouse, or being disappeared off of our streets, that have no criminal record. We're hearing from people that don't think it's right that a president should have a meme coin that allows him to enrich himself, to hawk his power and position for even greater wealth. Elevate those voices. To elevate those voices.
Will the senator yield for a question?
Thank you very much from
Before I
thank you
yield,
for the gifted
because
subs, Jeremy.
Exercise this power that
I really
might have
appreciate
for a little
that.
while
Thank
longer.
you. You're
And
amazing.
that I have a real chip on my shoulder. He's a senator from Arizona. Yeah, he's been a military fighter pilot. He's been an astronaut. He's been out of this world. But what ticks me off, sir, I've said nice things about everybody else.
All right,
but I'm
well,
not
the
saying
hype
them
train
about
started.
you, sir. Because when I go home to New Jersey and I walk through my airport, I was a Newark mayor, my airport, I see your big bald head up in big picture of you saying New Jersey Hall of Fame. Mark Kelly. Who the heck am I? You're the senator from Arizona, but yeah, you're right, okay. You're this great, celebrated military veteran and astronaut who grew up in New Jersey, who went to high school in West Orange, whose parents were cops. And so you have the accolades in my state, and I am proud of that. Proud of it, sir, with you. I still have the floor. Stop trying to speak.
Well, Senator,
There's rules in this place. Don't make me think the
He's now the
parliamentarian
third
and the
longest
presiding
speech.
officer-
Just has to
Thank
go a
you,
little bit
sir.
further.
Thank you, sir.
Senator, my apologies for the big
With
giant...
that kind of deference, I now will yield for a question while retaining the floor.
My apologies for my giant mug at Newark Airport, where I
overshadow me literally.
As Senator Booker knows, I did grow up in the state of New Jersey. And growing up in New Jersey, I came from a very working class
Fragrance,
family.
I'm not sure what that command is supposed to do.
My family didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a cop. He was a union member. From my earliest days of remembering my mom going to work, she started out as a waitress. And I remember those
yeah, sounds are on. We got
days
the
after working these night shifts
people
at these banquets, how tired
sing
she
before.
was. She would work
Although
some
it
long
seems
hours
like begun is broken to get
to
her
make
on. Hold
ends
on.
meet. Eventually, my mother decided that she wanted to become a police officer like my dad. But this was New Jersey in the 1970s. And for a woman to become a cop, it was really, really hard. It was practically unprecedented. And my mom had to take a written test and then a physical fitness test. And the physical fitness test, it was designed for men.
Okay,
And part
sounds
of
are
this
back
test
on.
required that my mom climb over this 7-foot 2-inch wall. Now, my mother was all of about 4 feet 13 inches tall. And to help my mom out in passing this test, my dad built a replica of this wall made out of a door between two pine trees in our backyard. He didn't tell her he made it an inch higher at 7'3". And I'd watch my mom go out there after dinner every night and try to get over this thing. And initially, she couldn't reach the top. And when she finally could, she would usually just fall off into the dirt. But my mom, she wasn't one to give up. And eventually, she was able to get over this thing. But it took her a long time. But she practiced for months. And when she finally took this test, instead of getting over in the required 9 seconds, she got over in 4.5, much faster than almost all the
Oh, yep,
men.
there it is.
And my mom became one of the first female police officers in northern New Jersey.
The horror.
And she kept that job for a long time until eventually she was injured. And by the way, it was the union that protected her rights after being injured on the job. But I remember how this job changed our lives economically. Both of my parents having good paying union jobs. It was part of what allowed my brother and me to chase our American dream.
I actually don't think Navi's voice is that
Serve in the
annoying, but I
United
do
States
think it's
Navy
because
and
it would always
eventually
force you to stop
both
in the
of
game.
us
That's
as
why everyone got so
astronauts
annoyed
in
with it.
NASA. And we were able to do that because our parents worked hard and they sacrificed for us. Some really good public schools. That's harder today for a lot of families, including the school part, by the way. I hear from so many folks in Arizona who feel like they're working harder and harder, and they just are not getting ahead. The cost of groceries and gas and housing, especially housing, makes these folks feel like they're just running in place. It shouldn't be that way. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they are making it worse. Trump's tariffs are going to jack up prices. They're even trying to do away with the Department of Education.
This cave should protect.
Now, how is that going to help kids get a good education?
It looks like this cave.
And if they're successful, their plan to gut Medicaid in order to pay for a giant tax cut for rich people, it's going to be even tougher for hardworking Americans, hardworking New Jerseyans and Arizonans to get ahead and achieve their American dream. So as a fellow kid from New Jersey,
You know, I think a lot of people bitch about
I never
Coliseum. This is a great mission.
never expected that tax cuts for rich people would potentially kill the American dream of kids all over this country. But it could. And as a kid, You, Senator Booker, growing up in New Jersey.
Unfortunately, Rachel, you spelled
interested
over
to hear
wrong
what
twice.
was your American dream, and why would these giant tax cuts make that kind of dream harder?
I appreciate the New Jersey Hall of Fame member, the only one in the United States Senate, and I appreciate his question. I appreciate the service of his parents out there every day putting their heart and soul in serving the community in a dangerous job where you often see people at their worst. I said this earlier, James Baldwin said, children are never good at listening to their elders, but they never fail to imitate them.
Yeah, that's probably church expert.
You are living up to the example your parents set in so many ways. And then you go and pull something off that really makes me jealous is you're one of the guys in the Senate that probably most married up. We're both Jersey boys. We both grew up there in grade schools and high schools. We both know those teachers that did so much for us. They coached sports. They taught us. I'm going back for a funeral for a great man in New Jersey named Ed Kohler this weekend, who was one of the greater influences in my life in high school. And you know how much people invested themselves. I remember learning Little League from a guy that would come back from working at a gas station, a parent of another kid. I still remember his big, thick hands teaching us how to hold the bat. And this guy's working a job at a gas station and rushes home to teach his kids
let's
Little
not do
League,
any
but treated me,
Bender sounds for now. I'll think about
black kid,
which one's
like one of his own kids. Special communities, special heritage, special culture that we share, this Jersey culture. We got the chip on our shoulders. We're tough. We're strong. We're proud. And from all over New Jersey, Andy Kim and I are hearing from so many people, and they're afraid, they're angry, they're worried. They don't understand why they're going after our Social Security programs, cutting benefits by cutting so many employees and cutting the service people get. They don't understand why they're seeing veterans being laid off from their government jobs. They don't understand why Social Security is being called a Ponzi scheme. The President of the United States is making up lies. They don't understand why veterans and Medicaid and Medicare, there's so many things that are making people worried, and I'm hearing their letters, and they're praying that we stop some of these things, like $880 billion worth of it. And the question is why? Why are we doing this? We're doing this. Portion benefit went to the wealthiest amongst us and the wealthy corporations. So Trump's economy in the first 72 days is pretty bad because of his reckless, chaotic behavior. Prices are up. Inflation is up. Stock market had its worst quarter in 2-3 years. Consumer confidence is down. And now we're going to see tariffs tomorrow, which are going to further drive up prices, create more chaos. Trump squandered the progress we were making on the economy. He tanked the market. He jacked up prices. Is it any surprise that Americans are feeling more pessimistic, as I said, with consumer confidence going down? And what's his first major legislative push? This is what we're talking about, my colleague, my friend, my fellow New Jerseyans. His first big legislative push in this body is not to help families.
I am not a couch.
No plan to lower costs. That's what he said he would do. Is his first legislation coming here about lowering costs? No. Is it any relief for seniors? Is it some big idea like we did to lower prescription drug costs? No, that's not what he's doing. Is his first priority helping our veterans? No. What is his first priority? As I said, it's extending the 2017 Trump tax cuts, a multi-trillion-dollar giveaway that slashed corporate taxes and overwhelmingly benefited the wealthy and left the middle class with crumbs, relative crumbs. He and his allies promised that the benefits would trickle down to workers. That's what we heard. It would pay for itself, was said. But in 2022, the Fed and the Joint Committee on Taxation confirmed the truth. 90% of workers, 90% of folk in our states saw no benefit. Now Trump and his GOP allies want to double down.
Oh man, it would be
even
amazing.
Bigger tax cuts that would increase the
we did
deficit
for
by
a bunch
over
of the
$4.5
Romulan
trillion,
stuff, but
the majority of which would go to the wealthiest people. Let me read what the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities and how they describe the plan. Here's a quote of their writings. Following a presidential campaign in which Donald Trump promised to improve the economic circumstances of working families, House Republicans are instead pushing to extend all expiring provisions of the costly 2017 tax law, which are heavily skewed to people with the highest incomes, and add new tax cuts on top of that. The Republican-controlled House passed a budget resolution on February 25th authorizing the $4.5 trillion in tax cuts through 2034 and called on committees to partially offset the cost with true $2 trillion in cuts. Are they cuts to the wealthiest? No.
What we really
These
needed
cuts will
was
never
6
hit
Westons.
programs such as Medicaid and SNAP, which help millions of families afford essential needs. Extending the inspiring tax cuts for individuals and large estates would double down on the flaws in the 2017 law by over $320,000 would receive roughly half of the benefits. So millionaires above that, billionaires, all together, they would receive roughly half of the benefits. Ballooning the deficit, along with the 2021 and 2023 tax cuts enacted under...
That's 100% how it works, Fragrance. Trickle-down economics has worked every time.
Excuse me, along with the 2001 and 2003 tax cuts enacted under President Bush, the 2017 law has severely eroded our nation's revenue base. The House budget would compound the damage, adding hundreds of billions of dollars to the deficit each and every year, extending the failing to significantly boost economic growth, workers' earnings, and other benefits would not be seen. The trickle-down benefits that proponents claimed in the 2017 law that they said it would produce never materialized. And the law hasn't come close to paying for itself, as I heard. All budget claims that extending the tax cuts would generate trillions in revenue, far more than any independent estimate. As of 2017, an alternative path is available. Congress should work towards creating a fairer federal tax system that raises more revenue from wealthy people and corporations and supports high-value investments that expand opportunity and promote more shared prosperity. During the 2017 debate, Trump administration officials and prominent proponents claimed the tax law would yield broadly shared benefits by boosting economic growth. President Trump's Council of Economic Advisors claimed the centerpiece corporate tax rate cut would very conservatively lead to a $4,000 boost in household income. What a lie. But the research to date has failed to find evidence that the gains from the corporate rate trickled down to most workers. Surprise, surprise, surprise. A study by economists from the Joint Committee on Taxation and the Federal Reserve Board found that workers below the 90th percentile of the firm's income scale, a group whose incomes were below roughly $114,000 in 2016, saw no change in earnings from the tax cut. Proponents claim that the tax cuts would pay for themselves. Hasn't panned out either. In fact, a study by economists from Harvard, Princeton, the University of Chicago, and the Treasury Department estimate that the law's total corporate tax cuts, the rate cut as well as full expensing for capital investments and international tax charges, reduced revenue by roughly 98 cents for every dollar of tax cuts. Reduced revenue in our country by roughly 98 cents for every dollar of tax cuts, even after accounting for increases in economic activity due to those
election in 2028, maybe, expert.
Would boost investment and create jobs. Then Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, for example, argued that the deduction would be good for the economy and good for growth. But researchers have found no evidence that it provided any significant boost in economic activity and little evidence that it increased investment or broadly benefited workers, other than the owners themselves. That in enacting a $4.5 trillion in new or extended tax cuts will produce enough additional economic growth to generate an extra $2.6 trillion in revenue through 2035. They think it's going to offset the tax cuts. The Committee for a Responsible federal budget has derided this claim as fantasy math. Noting that it is many times greater than even the most optimistic independent estimate. They lied to us, or at least just put out really expansive hope in the past, and none of it came true. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool the American people twice, well, we should not let it happen. This idea in this country that if you make the wealthiest more wealthy by giving them more tax cuts and deny services to our veterans, deny health care to our seniors, cut Social Security benefits, cut scientific research, cut programs that protect people's safety and security, that is going to somehow help our nation to prosper as a whole. You're kidding yourselves. We have the evidence. We have the analysis. And this is the crazy thing. As I heard from Chuck Schumer, the Republicans are now trying to hide the true cost of their billionaire tax cuts with accounting gimmicks. The New York Times interviewed budget experts from across the political spectrum to shed light on the Republicans' trickery. And this is the article I want to read. I know some people have questions. I want to read this article because Schumer shook me. So here's the New York Times. The title of the article is "The Budget Trick the GOP Might Use to Make $4 Trillion Tax Cuts Look Like They're Free." How much does a tax cut cost? It depends on what you compare it to. Republicans in Congress trying to advance a giant bill that includes $4 trillion in tax cut extensions are considering a novel strategy that would make the extension appear to be free money.
Welcome back,
The
Nestor.
trick, budgeting with the assumption that current policies extended indefinitely into the future, even those with an expiration date like the 2017 tax cuts set to end this year, next year. It's the difference between making the extension appear to cost $4 trillion, which is the true cost, or hiding it and say it costs nothing. Using this, quote, current policy baseline wouldn't change the bill's real effect on our deficits or debt, but it would make it easier to actually make the tax cuts lasting by sidestepping a rule governing budget reconciliation, the process Republicans are using to pass the bill. Yes, this sounds technical. That's why we've enlisted some of our Washington's top budget veterans to explain this maneuver using a metaphor. Across the ideological spectrum, nearly all of the more than 20 experts we heard from disliked changing the baseline that Chuck Schumer just came in here and said the Republicans have already decided that they're going to do it. This is outrageous. But here are the New York Times interviewed across the ideological spectrum, whole bunch of experts from the center, from the right, from the left, and let's hear what they're saying about this gimmick. If budget reconciliation is like taking the express lanes on a highway, there's extra rules and tolls, limited stops, but it gets you where you want to go faster, using a, quote, current policy baseline for taxes is like slapping a fake license plate on your car, says Zach Moeller, director of the economic program at Third Way, which describes itself as a center-left research group. They don't like this gimmick. They think it's fakery. Here's another person using an analogy. It's like taking an expensive week-long vacation and then assuming you could spend an extra $1,000 per day forever since you are no longer staying at the plaza. That's Goldwyn, Senior Vice President and Senior Policy Director for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a nonpartisan group that tends to be hawkish on deficits.
This is Andor. Our shields are taking hits, and we can use
Here's another person, Jessica Riedel, Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute. I've worked with them in the past, a conservative research group, and the chief economist for the former Republican Senator Ron Portman of Ohio. Last year, despite being deeply in debt, I bought a $100,000 because I'm merely spending the same amount of money as the year before. And if I purchase only a $70,000 car, then I should be congratulated for reducing my annual spending by $30,000. A conservative think tank is basically calling this a hoax and a lie. Lying to yourself. That if I keep spending the same amount I kept spending to drive up the costs, then I'm just doing the same thing I've done before, so it's not adding. Well, it is adding. There's no way to not call what the Republicans are trying to do a gimmick that's trying to hide the truth that they're going to add trillions of dollars to the deficits that our children, that our children's children are going to have to pay for. The debt payments alone to service the debt are going to be bigger than any of the programs we think we should be investing in, like science research or education or affordable child care or lowering prescription drug costs or cuts for the wealthiest. Conservatives, independents, left-leaning folks all come to the same conclusion. Pretending $4 trillion in tax cuts will cost nothing may not be easy math. Many Republican lawmakers who are concerned about the deficit are well aware that the bill will increase the deficit by a lot. Here's the integrity call. One Republican in the House showed his integrity. One budget hawk named Massey said, I can't vote for this stuff. I'm a budget hawk. I do not want to see increased deficits. He called it what it was. I saw him in an interview say, hey, wait a minute. By your own numbers, Republican colleagues, you're driving up the deficit by trillions of dollars, and you're making the rich richer, and you're leaving future generations more bankrupt. So this article assumes that this was all going to be decided by the Senate parliamentarian who advises legislators on chamber rules. This parliamentarian, I thought, could rule that the current policy baseline isn't allowed, forcing the Republicans to have to make a choice, overruling or replacing my friend, parliamentarian, somebody that on both sides of the aisle we respect. It's very rarely done. I've been here for 13 years. We've had the same parliamentarian. But that doesn't mean Republicans won't try, this article assumes, and I guess they did try. They found a way around the parliamentarian. They found a way around the rules of the Senate. They found a way around the ideals of reconciliation and the Byrd rule. They are deciding that the way we're going to do this is break the Senate and make up our own rules.
Okay, that's a good point to turn this off for a second. Huge respect to Corey and everything he's doing. I'm deeply, deeply impressed with him. I am going to wrap up for the day right here. I appreciate you all being here and hanging out and watching this with me and playing some Star Trek Online with me. Please continue to watch it. It's a historic event. You can just go to cspan.org. I think that's where it is. Yeah, cspan.org, and it's right there on the front page. You won't have to watch any ads like you do on YouTube. Participating in our democracy is the only way we can save the world from all of the bullshit we're dealing with. So, for the sake of all of us, for the sake of our kids, please be a part of it. I am going to see who we're going to raid, but first, you can follow me on my socials, and we have a group Discord that I would love for you to join. I'm going to leave that for now. Hey AJ, welcome. Sorry that you popped up just as we're leaving, but I appreciate you being here, and thanks for stopping by. All right, we are going to, I think, let's go raid Dark Mom again, because she will understand what we've been doing today.
It has begun.
There you go. You finally got it to work. All right. So we're sending a raid this way. go and give Dark Mom a nice hug. So it sounds like we might be moving Community Squadrons Day to Thursday. So I won't know for sure for a little bit whether our I love having you here, Vagrants. I won't know until tomorrow what we're playing, because it depends on how all that shakes out. But if it's not Squadrons, it's probably going to be No Man's Sky, if I had to guess. But I will let you know. And I will talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.